Okay, first item up, we have an existing sanitation lease that's about to expire. We've got a new signed lease for a renewal for a 5-year period beginning on November 18th, 2021. And it's set at $600 a year. With your approval, we need signatures on
Pass the copy down if you want to review before we take action on it. The lease is very simple, I suppose, unless, well, I guess there's probably an initial one and then it just gets amended every 5 years. Yes. Anything, no problems with them? Looks acceptable to me. I'll move that we approve the amendment to the lease for the.
Do we need to change that?
What's that?
My name is spelled incorrectly.
You need to scratch it.
Scratch it.
Just change your name.
Yeah.
Adjust to the new spelling.
I'm Commissioner Ramos.
That's not usually something I feel like I need to check. You know?
Sorry about that, I'll get that changed.
It's the hospital part of the Nichols.
This one's
Yeah.
See,
All right, well, I don't know if we could.
Yeah, pass the motion.
That's like,
First and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries.
Okay. Item 2, I think last meeting we had talked about that Malcon contract where they are going to do the work it takes to get us a reimbursement of excise tax paid. So if you all approve it this morning, we're going to need to transfer $1,500 from our computer equipment rental maintenance line item and move it over to contractual services to go ahead and pay for, you know, whatever that bill is going to be, but we know it's going to be a maximum of $1,500, so we're just moving that over to cover.
So Malcon was approved last Monday, or 2 Mondays ago, pending review of council. Have you had a chance to look at it?
It's been reviewed and they revised a couple of points that I'd asked for. They're printing it and bringing it over.
Couldn't print this morning, so.
Is there anything much substance that's changed?
The range for the years changed because they're limited to how far back they can go. Is that correct, Sandy?
The contract originally was written last year and said it could go back to 17, but it can't now, it can only go to 19, so they changed that. They changed the spelling and then they changed the date.
Right, there was an expiration date for the offer, which was a year old as well.
Right.
But no, nothing of substance. And I believe it was set up so that the invoicing, if there was one, it would be based upon what was recovered. So they, yeah, there was a max of 1,500
Per quarter.
per quarter, correct?
But I think the main benefit we talked about was the looking back period.
Mhm.
So I guess that would be a one-time shot at 1,500, and then going forward, the monthly would be the recovery of that. I guess what I'm getting at, I don't think there's any way they can spread out the looking back period. It seems like they would recapture it all. We pay 1,500 at one time. You know? So hopefully that works out that way, and we can decide what we want to do going forward.
Yeah.
But no, I'm fine to sign the agreement whenever it comes over, and I'm fine with
It's on the agenda later.
the MPH transfer. So, How about this? We'll say, I'll move that pending, well, I guess we did approve it last time, and Mr. Schneider saying that he's okay with it. So I guess we can
I
make
don't
this
think
transfer.
you formally approved it.
I don't know.
I thought the minutes that we approved it pending his, review. Did I look at it yesterday? Either way, I think I'll make the motion that we approve the MVH transfer as requested to Mr. Berg.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay. And, final thing on here, due to some recent activity involving, work zone safety, we're gonna add two additional steps in order to keep our staff safe. We're gonna be looking at, purchasing some like sawhorse barricades and stuff so we can kind of keep the traffic a little further away. We're gonna need sets for, each of our staff, so by the time we get all this, there's gonna be a lot of equipment, so, we're gonna probably need to get a small trailer with that as well, so. But we've got money in our, line item, we're gonna get it out of our signs line item and get that purchased so we can create a larger buffer. Try to keep the traffic away. So.
So from the legal standpoint, is there really anything short of having a deputy sit there? I mean, what else you can do, because you're gonna be there all day, and you can't really have a deputy sit there if people go around the barricade.
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't know if there was something that could be done to,
If we set
when
up,
someone does come around it, you take their license plate and
yeah, if we're set up with barricades and proper signage and everything else, and somebody runs around it and they get a plate and a couple witnesses, then the sheriff has something to go on,
Mhm.
so.
I'm trying to think of any good reason a person would go around, because I'm sure you take into, logistically, you take into account that if you close the road here, there's probably still a building or two between, in some cases, where you closed it and where the actual construction is going on, so people still have to have their ability to access their property, but really,
A barricade
gotta
will
be
not,
very few people.
you don't set the barricade up necessarily at the closest road, you set the barricade up within your job site.
Right.
And your road closed ahead signs go at your furthest intersection out, so there may be a select time where you have a driveway for somebody, but where the barricades are, nobody should be inside of it.
Yeah, that's in all cases. What we have now, I mean, we have posted that the road is closed and, men working and that type of thing. And I know, I spoke to a couple people on that particular day. Well, yeah, we saw the sign, but we didn't think you really have it closed. Why would the sign be up? You know?
And it's not just for the safety of your staff, it's for the public as well. They
Right.
don't know what you've done to the road or what's safe to be done, what isn't. So, I mean, it's better for both sides.
Mhm.
It's an inconvenience, and everybody's run up with one of those, and it gets them a little behind, but that's the nature of repairing roads.
You know, they're already late for their appointment and it's frustrating.
And now it's your fault because you're fixing the road, right? No, I'm with you. What you need to do, whatever you need to do there is fine, and I know you won't buy anything that you, isn't necessary.
Will you'll be able to buy the trailer out of the sign fund as well?
Yeah, I think we've got some additional money and equipment that we can probably do that as well. I think we're looking at around $2,200, $2,500 by the time we get the trailer purchased and get some brackets and stuff in place so we can properly store everything in a nice, neat little orderly fashion. So when we're done, we can load it back up on that trailer, and that trailer is going to be shared amongst all three districts. So
Okay.
there's going to be some times where we have two districts putting in pipe the same day. So it's going to have to go, you know, from one job to the other, and then, you know, just back and forth. But we can share that, but at least everything will be on that trailer. So anything we're going to need will be on that.
Thank you for the update. I hope the public will respect the work zone safety.
That's all I've got.
Anybody have anything else for Steve? Thanks, sir.
That's what's a mistake.
Still using it.
Oh, okay.
Still using it. Not that far in.
For one of the minutes. One of the changes,
Just trying to have to strike it out, 'cause the changes are- you know what I mean?
okay, Brent, go ahead.
Okay, first thing on here is a site distance waiver for a driveway on Du Bois Cusco Road.
Says you're on.
Then you fill the driveway application, just a copy of what you got to see. On the back page is a map showing what's going on. So what it is, it's got a little white building there on the south side of the road. We've got a hitting facility in there. And people,
Got a what in there?
a hitting facility for, I guess the softball players, I think the Du Bois softball players, they're hitting, coaching. They're currently parking on this asphalt right next to the building. So they're currently parking right there. He wishes to put a driveway, well, a parking lot type area right in this area right here. That's where he wants to put a parking lot.
Okay.
With it being around a bend, sorry, with it being around a bend and the building where it's located, you don't want to see 350 feet around that corner, and our ordinance states 400 feet. So, everything is acceptable, I get it, why he's doing it, but it does not meet our ordinance, it doesn't meet our specifications. So, he has agreed to fill out the driveway waiver, and he's obviously, as you can see, he signed it and had it notarized. So I think with all that being said, I get why he's doing that. I think it's acceptable. It's not ideal, not even close to ideal, but the way the land lays and the way the road is, he'd tear down a building to see further. Well, clearly he's not going to do that. So
Is the building legal?
it's out of the right of way. It's out of the right of way. That's all we can do. So.
Does the parking space in front of there, would that not have violated the ordinance as well? Or is it a
We
new
have
parking
no ordinance. The building where it's the access for the building, you use that, you can see. But the cars parked there, and they pull in, they park, their bumper is probably a foot off the white line. So they're backing out and trying to make turns.
So access to the parking lot is on the
You
east side of the building, east end of the building?
Yeah, it's right here, sorry, right here, west side.
No, the parking lot he wants to put in.
Yes, yes,
But
it's
this-
right here. That's where they're
Where
parking
they're
right now.
parking right now, how do they get to that? How do they cross? Is there a culvert under there? Or-
Yeah, there's currently a culvert right there. The culvert's, we've got the culvert all figured out. That's not a problem.
Okay,
There's a culvert running the full length in front of the building.
but the culvert allowing access to that little strip in there, does that not constitute a driveway?
It does, and it is a driveway, but the cars, when they're pulling out, you got all these cars parked in a line in front of the building. You got 6 or 7 cars parked there, and that 5th car in, trying to back out to turn and go back toward Du Bois.
Right.
That's really not safe at all.
I guess what I'm saying is, how did he get access to that building in the first place?
Again, that was prior to me,
Prior to the,
but
It's an old building. It's 20 years
no,
old.
I think it was done after 2004, but I do not know that. the building was put up and the driveway was given probably somebody prior to me, but how that was done, I don't know. It was done before '04, I don't know. I think it was after '04, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So I'm getting at the same question you did. Yes, he can put a building anywhere he wants, but to have a driveway access like he has, if he has parking, that's a drive.
Unless it predates the ordinance.
And I don't know.
And again, he's trying to do something to improve the situation. it
Correct.
sounds Like, so I mean, I'm not.
Correct.
I don't wanna, I guess I'm knocking the old thing, not the new thing.
Right.
Cause if this was bad, then that would have been bad.
Yeah.
Or outside of the,
Yeah, so if we don't approve this, it's actually worse.
probably. So the 400 feet, is that a
It's
standard,
it's the amount of distance it takes a car at 45 miles an hour to come to a complete stop. So if you pop the hill and I'm pulling out of my driveway, you saw me for 400 feet, you get your car stopped. All right, let's say I'm pulling my camper and I run it too sharp, and I'm sitting there in the middle of the road. They can come to a stop before they get to me.
I'll move that we approve the driveway site distance waiver as given to us by Audrey and
Ian didn't do
Ian.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. You need these back?
I need one back. I'm ready to do okay. That's fine.
Yeah, that's right.
Next thing is the ADA and Title VI compliance. So I forwarded you guys an email on Friday with our updated plan that was submitted to NDOT. They did review it and it would bring us into compliance. But with all that being said, I did ask Marky, I don't know if you probably go get him, about being the Title VI coordinator because Title VI is more HR for human resources. Huh?
You want me to-
Probably, yeah. So that's the only major change in here. I added a couple sections, but it's sections that the federal government requires to be in here, so there's not much we can do to alter it. It's just saying that we will train our employees every year, and a new employee will be trained and given Title VI material. So that's all it is. Everything else is exactly the same as the one that was done in 2016.
I looked at it and
Thank you.
I agree, it makes more sense that it be under the umbrella of the HR. I don't know how much work, if you will, that we're transferring to HR when we do that. Is it anything, now that Mark is here, anything that he's not already doing?
It will be a little more training wise for individuals because of the yearly annual training that we have to pursue. But with our risk management meetings, that would usually be a good time, and department head meetings. And it doesn't have to be a 2-hour long seminar, it could be 15, 20 minutes of anything new that comes up. Or people just stating, hey, if we come across this problem that maybe the county needs to address. So,
Talking about whether to transfer the
Okay.
Title VI coordinator.
ownership's not the right word, but the Title IV duties.
Brent mentioned it to me a little bit before the commissioners meeting and we talked through it. I mean, my only thing is we'll obviously have to work on the
Yes.
transition and make a
Right.
clean transfer
Right.
over, but, I don't have any objections to taking it over.
As far as the day-to-day, there's not much extra work that has to do, it's just keeping the plan updated. And then just training, new employee comes in, you just state what we are, how we are with Title VI, and then a yearly job here during our risk management meetings, we do one meeting, we do 15 minutes of Title VI, and we've got it, just kind of going over and reviewing everything, and that's it. The ADA, I need to keep because I think it's physical stuff on the ground, and I have no issues to that. Just Title VI, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. I know what I need to do, but as far as training and things like that, that's where he's more equipped for that.
Title VI, okay. Yes, sir. I
That's
don't
better,
know what it would be.
Is it Title, it's Title VI, right?
I said Title IV,
Okay.
Title I, and Title VI, yeah.
So I didn't know what Title VI was, I didn't remember, so I looked it up again. It says it pertains to any activity or program receiving federal financial assistance, but really the things of the discriminatory issues related to that, even if it's not federally financed, there's other state laws, things that almost mirror that, so. I guess you introduce that to the people when we do training yearly, and it's just good business, even if it's not federally funded.
It's a good practice as a human being.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
So absolutely, so, no, I think that's a good move, and I don't know that do we need to formally move on that?
I think you do need to formally approve him being the coordinator.
All right, I think.
And then, also the acceptance of the updated plan. Then when that's accepted, it doesn't have to be, I don't have to have anything here, but as long as I have it in the minutes, so we can go back and find it, then I'm gonna put it on the website. And we've got that.
Sounds good. I appreciate you presenting the updated Title VI plan, and I'll move that we approve the updated plan, and I move that we approve having Marky Rose as a new Title VI coordinator.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on the topic? Hearing none, take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
I'll get you all the information I got, and then I'll go over it, Scott.
Sounds good to me. Think no problem.
All right, and then courthouse war memorial, not gonna lie, I didn't get much done on that my goal is to get this week and get funding avenues and start working on that, so.
The only other thing I had was, is there any update on the Du Bois situation? I still have it in my notes. I'll probably bug you about
No.
it every time.
No, I'll get with Brad.
Brad.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because I know the further we get away from the flooding issue that we have there, won't be in front of mine, so that's when I keep looking at it. If there's nothing that can be done, well, then we'll know that. And if there is, then we'll. Anything else, Brent?
No,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Mark, you want to come on up about an employee with an unpaid leave request?
All right, Marky Road Human Resources. So today I'm basically here to make a formal request for unpaid leave for one of our full-time employees. This employee's in good standing. He's been working with HR the past few months, anticipating the need for this leave request. This employee's been with the county less than a year, so they do not qualify for FMLA. If they did, we wouldn't necessarily be here right now, because if they did qualify, the request would be approved. The employee does have PTO and comp hours that's going to be initially used at the start of the leave. And then for the extended, the rest of the leave would be the unpaid leave where we would come in at. This employee is expected to be back to work before the end of 2021. So I took the hours that they have available. The planned leave would be November 4th. They're expecting to be back by December 20th, and the hours that they have on the book, looks like the unpaid leave would be for 16 days. So
What day in December was that again?
December 20th would be the estimated return to work date. The start of leave would be November 4th.
So in this situation, I am in favor of granting this leave. So that's one part of it. And if we do approve the leave, I would just ask Mr. Rhodes talk to them about the comp time that they've accumulated, because it's not necessary that they accumulated that much leave time. What generally happens in a case where an office stays open later one night of the week, they would take off, they would have a shorter shift the next day instead of having one person compound and gather comp time. So it's just another liability for the county that isn't necessary. So I would just say that in this case, we approve it. Good luck with your next month, but be cautious with how you accumulate comp time.
So that's kind of a separate issue, is what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying the comp time was accumulated purposefully for this upcoming thing where it shouldn't be done.
I see.
So it's similar, it's within the same family of issues, I think. But as far as the request, I will move that we approve the unpaid leave request from the employee.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. So yeah, just make
I can do that.
Take that as a secondary point to approval. Thank you. Anything else from Mr. Rhodes?
That is it. Open enrollment, going on here the next 2 weeks for county, so, be a busy time, so.
And again, if people don't have any changes that they want, or if they're an employee that's been here a while, they don't really have much need to see you, is that accurate?
Correct, passive enrollment this year, so, what they currently have will automatically be what they have for 2022, so, hopefully we won't have a ton of changes, hopefully, so. Knock on wood, so that's good. Early morning this morning, security center, so.
Appreciate you coming in
Yeah,
early.
Oh, you went in there?
Take care of
Yeah.
those people at the highway this morning.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Marky. Take care. Okay, now, we're gonna go ahead and do the minutes for the October 18th, 2021 meeting. Actually, we have the October 19th as well. I'll move that we approve both sets of minutes.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Did I sign both of those?
I don't think either of us, any of us signed on the 18th. Next up, we have the payroll. Anybody have any changes or questions or concerns on the payroll? I'll move that we approve the payroll presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I actually still have an outstanding question on one of the claims. So I'm gonna hold on to those. And my only question on that, they send you, Purdue Extension wants some materials for their issue out there, but I didn't understand what the check was written to them.
Sometimes people pays for it and reimburse them.
So they have maybe an account with Purdue.
Do whatever else to make reimburse them for things they pay for.
You seem to not have it be like running out of the check.
Well, we're not paying their office, we're paying Purdue.
Maybe I just look at it. It just struck me funny, so I'm gonna look at it one last time and then we can approve it. Did either of the other commissioners have any issues with any of the claims?
No,
No.
did not. No, I'm good.
I was trying to figure out what yours was.
Yeah, just one of the so like here, Purdue Extension has two claims here, one for $470, one for $44.07, and the claim is being paid to Purdue Extension. So I don't know, I wasn't understanding why you would take a check and pay yourself. Why not just leave it in your own fund? That's what I didn't know what the purpose of this was. I think I have somewhat of an idea what was going on. So I'll move that we approve the claims from the county as presented.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. The city Jasper's here and ready, but I will wait a couple more minutes just in case someone from the public wants to participate in that discussion or listen in. One thing I'll bring up is park funding for the project that they have. I don't know that we have that on the agenda anywhere, so I'm going to bring that up as an extra item. The commissioners previously approved $350,000 for their project to come from American Rescue Plan dollars. Since that time, Mr. Schneier has consulted with a few people and he has had an opinion himself about if that is the best way to proceed or not. I believe the opinion that we've gotten from several others was that
It was not.
that it leaves us open for questions or.
There is some slight risk there, yes.
Right, so there's a slight risk of being called out for it. The reason I'm bringing it up today is there is a bill that was passed from the Senate, is now at the United States House of Representatives, being considered to give more flexibility to these American Rescue Plan dollars. And I don't know if we should, what I don't want to happen is we get a couple more months further into this, they have bids in hand, and our board doesn't have the funding in place that we're comfortable with. In other words, if we're not comfortable with moving forward with the American Rescue Plan dollars, should we ask the county council to appropriate edit dollars or some other funding mechanism for it? Myself, I'm generally risk averse. In this situation, I'm not. I think the flexibility that will pass, and even if it doesn't, as I've reviewed the frequently asked questions and the rules as it pertains to, and I told this to Mr. Schneier too, I generally don't consider my legal mind greater than his or the people that he responds to. But as I read
don't recall hearing that, but.
as I read through it, it says there are multiple, part of the rules say, there are multiple ways that investment improving outdoor spaces could qualify as eligible uses. And the American Rescue Plan documentation, again, says the things that they're telling us, it's not an exhaustive list. That there are other ways that a specific investment in outdoor spaces would meet eligible use criteria. I think what the attorneys are saying is that it's not specifically allowed, and I would argue it's not specifically disallowed either. The purpose of this is to, improve outdoor spaces for people during a pandemic when people are encouraged to enjoy outdoor spaces more so than indoor spaces. And it does, one of the other pieces of the language that they brought up was that it would be more acceptable if it helped disproportionately impacted communities, right? So that's a word that would mean people that are minorities or other places that have low income, those kind of things. The low income is one that's an easy one to justify if you have a real poor area that earns less than median income. But as I looked up what disproportionately impacted communities means, one of the ways that it's defined is rural areas. So 100% of DuBois County would count as a rural area. DuBois County also has a couple. Anyway, I think I've probably rambled on longer than I need to. I'd be comfortable moving forward with leaving the funding as it is. If the two of you are not, then we can, I think we need to do something to make sure that the park department feels comfortable that they're not going to go through the bidding process and at the end of it not have a way to pay for the project. We've given our support through these funds. If we don't feel like we're going to support it outside of these funds, we need to let them know immediately.
Well, I would be in favor of supporting it because we gave them that commitment, and I would not be in favor of pulling that commitment. However, I don't think I'm ready to commit ARPA funds to it because of the legal advice that we've got. I just feel like if we're wrong and our legal advice was correct, that really puts us in a bad place.
Do you think at this time we just roll with it? If in 2 months the flexibility hasn't been given from the program, then we just ask the council. I guess my thing is, then the council's really on the spot. We've already got bids in at that point. If the council's going to say, no, we're not going to give those funds, it's better that they say that now than then. Because we get to determine if we use the ARP money, we don't get to determine if they use other funds.
Mhm.
Commissioner Hostetter, any thoughts?
I think to a certain extent, I agree with Elmer, but I think I'd be comfortable maybe informing the council that we prefer to use the edit funds and ask for their approval to do so. And I would do that sooner rather than later. And if not, then we could go ahead with the ARPA funds, and hopefully at that point, we know what the flexibility is.
So in short, say that us as a board, after a brief discussion, are probably not comfortable moving forward with the ARPA money, and they need to start discussing if they're willing to use alternative funds.
No, I would not full support though if the council would not support it.
So if the council,
I would prefer to use edit funds,
uh,
but I would not full support. I would still use the ARPA money if the council would choose not to.
sounds good. Thank you. And we are close enough to 8:40. I think that we can move forward with Mayor Vonderheide. And it looks like you brought some friends along for a discussion of
people that know more.
No worries.
And that's everybody.
for the topic of Jasper downtown revitalization.
Yeah, and appreciate the opportunity to just kind of talk about this project. You know, it's been years in the making, and you know, we've had a working group on this, I guess, for the last year and a half. That's been trying to sort through where we picked up from before and where we're going with a little bit different scope than what we had before. You know, so first thing I want to reassure is that we did not corner the market on white paint. It is not our intention. I know I've had a couple people ask me, why are you going to paint the courthouse white? That's not the case.
I was gonna say, we didn't get permission for that.
Yeah. But it helps get the generic look about what is changing in the colored slides there. And you've probably had access to these slides already. I think they've probably been forwarded to you. But I think just to walk through a little bit about what that downtown's all about. You know, we are going to maintain, I think it's 12-foot concrete sidewalks all the way around the outside of the square. There will be permeable pavers in the parking areas and around the corner. Now we see that, well, the corner, see how they're, where the walkways are. So those will all be permeable pavers in there and ADA accessible. One of the things that we tried to do was bring the downtown into compliance with ADA. And that wasn't just the sidewalks, but it was also the courthouse accessibility. And that was a big factor in how we approach this. So all the way around, we've got ADA accessibility. We have moved the ADA ramp to enter the courthouse to the northeast corner of the courthouse. And the intent is that it's going to be built up ramp, and when you look at it from a distance, when you're looking at it up 6th Street to the west, it would blend in with the current architecture of the courthouse. So it would not have any negative impact. It would blend in. They would actually use a veneer, is that what they call it? Not a veneer to match the courthouse on the outside. So it would blend in naturally. It will be a square rather than a squircle. You'll see that the radiuses have been moved out on the corners, and there will be a sidewalk around the inside of the courthouse square. It also would have access to the pedestrian crossings. We did take a look at trying to eliminate the number of pedestrian crossings. And people say, well, why do you need 2 at every intersection? But once you have them, when you take them away, you become very liable. And so rather than take them away, it's been fought in court already, and Randall Ernstberger advised highly against eliminating those. So we want to emphasize them. We want to make them as safe as we can for people that are going to and from the courthouse to access it.
Mayor, the there's no curb around the courthouse.
It is a curbless environment.
And it's a walking path, sidewalk around the exterior of the courthouse with no difference in height between the, it's kind of like walking on the street, it's just a different material. I mean, as far as height wise,
And there is a material around the edge, and we'll see it in a later slide, I think, but there's a material around the edge that is actually like a rumble strip, if you will, before you get to the sidewalk. So they've kind of made that separation there, along with, you'll see that tile on the outside. So that tile doesn't mean that there's no separation. I mean, it's identified visually, and it's identified, I think, with the texture of the materials. I think that's what it said.
That's what it is.
and then with the radius is expanded slightly on the south side where the mailboxes are.
Yes.
So is that side actually further going to be moved further south, or is that
No,
part of
no.
that stays?
No,
Okay, that
it would stay, it's just the radius is the corner.
just the
corners.
corners expand. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you.
Some good questions. What was I gonna say about crosswalks, safety, and I guess as you also see in there, because it is a curbless environment and we have permeable pavers with drain access as backup, okay? It's not just relying on permeable pavers. There will be a inlet at the planter boxes so that if we'd have a deluge downtown, it would take on that additional water. The contouring, there will be contouring specifically on the northwest corner because we know how much that falls. We've got to take the grade and make that more acceptable, and they assure us that will take place, that the elevations have been done, and they can make that work. Again, we're getting into the final design now, and that's where we are. We're in the final design phase to take it to the first of the year. So we're going to do the engineering work, and then first of the year we'd be available to put it out to request for proposals, and by March hopefully award the contract and be started with contractor on this project. The main reason we're doing a lot of this is infrastructure is aged. We've got 100-year-old water lines underneath the roads, and we just, like 2 weeks before Strassenfest, we had a water line break on the north end of the courthouse, and thankfully we didn't have a water slide during Strassenfest. But when you fix one section of it, another sections become susceptible. It's an aging infrastructure, needs to be replaced. So when we tear this up, we got to put it back in a reasonable manner, and it needs to be upgraded some. We've done a lot of facelifting downtown with the facade programs, trying to get buildings up to speed to make them more attractive in the marketplace, and we're starting to see some movement in that. I think this is another big step for the downtown area and the courthouse square, because this is a place to visit. You want to go to the next slide? See.
Before we move on, I don't know why it's a sticking point with me, but those curbless things, I'm not familiar with them. I've never been anywhere that I can think of that has had that. And I guess the engineers are, I guess I'm talking to the local people, Mr. Herman, Nature Street Department people, and Brent. We don't have any safety concerns with that, or it's new to me, so maybe I'm just ignorant on how it works. But to me, it doesn't feel safe as somebody hitting a curb and being able to correct. I would hate for that thing, that's the only, and I guess it bothers me because it affects, it is on the courthouse itself, on the courthouse square, I won't comment about the stuff that's off Clark Square. So I don't know, anybody have any comments on that? We feel good about that?
There is a separation between the sidewalk and the actual driving surface, and that there is a tactile as well as visual buffer there. I mean, this is it's a system that's used in many other locations. Probably most notably is downtown Indianapolis. As far as the safety concern, I mean, there's a safety concern anytime, but there is a buffer and a warning mechanism in place there for those vehicles.
So possibly what we're losing from a physical barrier being a curb, we are making up in a rumble and a visible.
Well, we're also, there's a traffic calming designed to this. So as you come in to the square, there's not that big width that exists today. So you're not gonna be speeding into that. You will have to be in control. It will be an environment where a driver is gonna be aware of what's going on around them. They have to be more alert, period. We're gonna lose parking spots on the corners, that's what I was gonna state, and in order to meet regulations, state regulations. So we are gonna lose some parking spots around the corners, and there will no longer be parking around the inside of the courthouse for our law enforcement at the point when this is completed. We are making provisions for the parking for law enforcement that has to go to the courthouse to be outside the annex along 6th Street and farther down on 6th Street, possibly on the west side. There's two additional parking spaces being made there. Yeah, and there we will retain the ones that exist on the southwest corner of the courthouse, the ones that are used today. So parking wise, you know, we're going to get them off of the inside and put them out into parking spots. And we've had law enforcement, both Jasper PD and the Sheriff's Department involved in that discussion.
Those parking places that are on our property over there, are they ADA compliant when it comes to being close to that crosswalk?
It's close to that yeah,
It's accessible.
accessible, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know,
We'll be
certain
compliant.
distance you have to be from a crosswalk.
Right, 20 feet, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. You can't legally park within 20 feet of the crosswalk.
We'll have to ask Pete about that because I know what you're saying. Looking at it, it appears that those 3 spaces are well within 20 feet of that one parking.
It's a good
But
question.
maybe it's because of the way they're situated.
Okay, good question. And
I mean, we don't want to lose them.
we certainly want to make sure
We
we're
don't want to
compliant
lose them,
there.
but we don't want somebody to come along at the end and say, you can't do that.
Trees,
In case you mentioned the ADA ramp, but we couldn't see it in the first slide, and here it is in case you didn't notice.
yeah, we're not sure it would extend out as far as what it's showing there. They just did that for, I think, to plug it in. But the actual scale, I think they still need to work out. Right. Let's go to the next slide. So a lot of what we're going to do in the downtown, we want to make it, you know, a gathering spot for people. We're going to have different materials in there with the concrete, with the permanent pavers, with some accents. And I think that's second from the right on top. That's that border that they're talking about that separates traffic. And it has got a texture to it. If you're driving over it, similar to what I guess it would be if you drove down the center of the
Center
highway.
highway, yeah.
Rumble strip, yeah. We are going to use a dark permeable paver in the parking spots, just so we don't show oil or any issues with cars that might have a problem. Or temporarily, there will be some bicycle parking along the area as well. And the greenery, It's to be chosen yet, but our intent is that we want to put in watering systems, because one of the challenges we have is keeping things alive around the square, watering them consistently. And if you don't water plants, of course, they dry up, and we see that occasionally from here up all the way up and down Main Street. So there will be some watering mechanism there. There will be watering access for festivals in the corners. Let's go to the next page, yeah. Similar to what you see in the middle right slide. So there'll be you can pull that off and you'll have access to spigots. There'll be a bottle filler station with potentially a dog bowl down below for water. And then, one of the challenges we have everywhere in the community is dog waste, and make sure people pick up after the dogs, so we'll have something like that. Different types of lighting. You see the lights up there in the middle, top. Does Edison Lights, is that what they call them? Something like that. Catenary, okay, so catenary string lights is kind of what's being thought of. And that would be used in the corner nodes as well as the alleyways. The umbrellas, shade umbrellas, potentially in a corner. Let's go to the next one. I think it might show you. This is showing our plantings and the tree choices. And one of the things that we want to make clear is that we don't want trees that are going to grow up and block signage and create bird nests, roosts. We like kind of thin ornamental trees if we can in there. And they've got some selections, some hybrids that they work with that we feel like would spec out pretty well for it. That's another view. Let's back to the original. One, I do want to point, see in front of City Hall, we are moving from the corner node. Right now, in that corner, we're going to move the flagpoles to the front side of City Hall. And so each of these corner nodes are going to be gathering spaces. And different, various seating, various arrangements. It didn't show the ones with the fireplace.
Not yet. There's City Hall.
Yeah, there's City Hall. Let's go to the next. That's a view coming up the street, down the sidewalks. So it's still going to have that clean look that we're used to. Now here's a potential, and we're looking at this potentially a fire pit that could be on a timer or whatever, that people could sit around and congregate, talk, socialize. Again, we want this to be a gathering place downtown. In different configurations, could be wood benches configured in there. We do want to emphasize the fact that we are a wood manufacturing community, and so we want to use wood in a lot of these places and emphasize that. The umbrellas, there could be some fine lighter dining opportunities out there in these areas. And then this is kind of a fun swing that's got a canopy over for sun. Shade is a big deal downtown. We don't have shade in many of the areas, and so the umbrellas and the canopies like this are a big deal, and the trees are a big deal. This is showing some alleyways that might be these are some treatments that other people did. It's an exciting project. The first phase of it was $4.6 million. We are going from one block each direction off of the courthouse at this point in time for phase one. We will continue down Main Street and up Main Street to 9th Street eventually in phase two, but first things first, and we'll get this done. Now, we will be doing utilities all the way up Main Street because we got access. It's once we go farther north, it can be timed differently. Timing wise, we've worked with the downtown merchants, the Heart of Jasper. We've gotta have access to our shops, gotta have access to the courthouse. So some of the parameters that have to be built into it is accessibility during construction. Construction is expected to be about 15 months, 15 to 18 months, I think, little over a year, year and a half. So if we can get started in March, we will have a whole summer season and winter season of construction. And hopefully it's completed then, in summer of 2023.
I think the plan is during that winter season to kind of settle things down over the holiday shopping season. So from sometime early November until December. When we move out, it's not a situation where the contractor is leaving. It's just that we're gonna try to allow the busy shopping season to be as unaffected as possible.
So, brings you up to speed with what we have, at least at this point in time, asked REA to provide final engineering. And REA is, again, Lundell Ernstberg and Associates. That's the design firm that we've been working with, design engineering. Any other questions that we might answer?
So once they have final design, will they have cost estimates along with it?
And we have cost estimates now, like I said, it's 4.6 million.
I mean, you feel comfortable that those are pretty refined,
I think they're pretty close.
pretty close to this point?
I mean,
Do they include the improvements that would be on our property, like the ramp, for example? Is the ramp included in that 4.6 estimate?
I don't think that was included, and that will be,
that would not include, the furnishings in the corner cones.
right, we did not include that in scope. We were looking at that as being a sponsored corner node originally. So
The new surface on the parking area on the other side of the courthouse, is that included in
That should
I
be,
don't think on the interior, not on the
on
courthouses,
the sidewalk,
those 3 parking spaces.
on the sidewalk on the interior?
I think that would be included. You know, Chad?
I believe the sidewalk and all the interior treatments there were included. I don't recall the parking area.
Yeah, we didn't, I'm sure the ramp was not, and I don't think we knew, for sure whether the interior parking spaces were going to be left as is or whether they were gonna go to permeable pavers, so I don't think those were included.
well, we can confirm that. We will confirm that. But we're pretty excited about, at least this gives us something to look forward to and work toward, which it's been years. It's not that we didn't identify that it needed to be done, it's just that we had other things that we felt like were priority for our funding at that time. Now we feel like this is one that needs to be surfaced because of the need for our infrastructure. And I'm gonna include the road. Ever since I've come in, probably council, I think, almost, Jeff, we've been talking about repaving Main Street and wanna do it, but then we kept, can't do it if we're gonna tear it up, Eventually, we're gonna have to repave it, so we'll.
But all of that is included in the 4.6.
Right.
Any idea what percentage of that is infrastructure work?
I do know, but I don't have that with me.
We do have it all broken
Yeah, it's
out.
broken out.
You think we know, we've looked at those
I
numbers
know,
enough.
I was gonna bring that sheet along and I absolutely didn't get it done.
So similar to the discussion we had earlier with the park money, probably the sooner we know what our cost will be, the sooner the council can consider it. Because that won't really,
Well,
as far as the,
I would ask that you don't just consider your cost, but you also contribute to this project, because similar to what you did with Huntingburg, you didn't have any costs there, but you contributed with their downtown and their improvements. I would love to see the county contribute to this project as a partner to make Du Bois County and this courthouse square, which I think everyone's proud of, a site. a place to be proud of. Every merchant, or not every merchant, but every resident at some point in time does business at the courthouse. You know, and I think it's important to do the work we're doing on it. So I'd like you to consider not just the cost that is specific to the courthouse, but a contribution toward this entire project, because this is just phase one.
So my assumption was that was gonna be this thing you bring up at the summation at the end of your presentation. So what is your ask, I guess? Because we won't even make that determination. I guess we would determine if we're okay with that and the ADA ramp, and we're okay, with the structural part of it, that we would approve that, but ultimately the financial end would come from our county council. So, I think you're planning to meet with them later this month as well, aren't you? Or
I'm not scheduled.
okay, so I guess then we need to know how to approach them or what that approach would be. So one, we need to know what our costs are gonna be, because that I think would be a minimum that we would do. And if you want something additional to that, then we have to bring that to them for their considerations. We wouldn't make that determination. We could say we support or don't support it, I suppose.
So is that a presentation I need to make to the council, or is it something that I need to get your approval before I go to the council?
I think, I would say that I would approve, I could say that we can approve in principle the idea of their design, of the ADA ramp, of the parking, and whatever's on our physical footprint. I think we could say we approve that, and then it would have to be a council determination if they want to fund that. Is that how the other commissioners would look at that?
Yeah, I would break it into two parts. First of all, what's happening on our property, the land, parking spaces, even the sidewalk, on our property. And we approve the concept of constructing, or we approve the construction of that.
As well as the
Even-
road access included?
What,
Is the road access included or not?
road access?
I mean, it's not just that square inside, it's the access to it. We're gonna do the roads, we're gonna do the crosswalks, we're doing a lot to spruce it up.
Yeah, no,
Infrastructure.
Yeah,
I
get
think
it.
what you meant was that in two different two different
Two different
decisions.
concepts here, yeah.
Yeah.
We approve,
Okay.
first of all, the physical changes to our property. And secondly, the concept of the entire downtown improvement.
Well, we would love to have your support on the whole project.
Yeah.
And as far as here and at the council, we would love to have your support for that. Mayor, I guess you can make an ask. I mean, is that what you're asking for an amount?
The council will need that. I don't need it, but the council
You
will.
don't, okay.
Well,
council will
I
need
think
to
we'll
say-
have an estimate on the ramp and stuff at next meeting. So.
Yeah, I said, I guess they're having for that, so we'd have that. We have an estimate the last time we designed the ramp.
Not a firm one.
Not a firm one, it was just numbers based on what I get my material for.
I'll put something together on a formal request into the council. But I think the fact that you're engaged in this and we're this far down, it's good.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's good. We're
No, I-
moving and it's got to take place, so.
I fully support this, and I'll be honest, I'm really excited about it. I think it would be great for downtown. I think Jasper, it is a downtown destination, and it'll make it a little more vibrant. It's good.
Thank you.
No, I agree. I support the concept of the whole improvement of it. I mean, there are some things like reduced parking and so forth, but those are trade-offs, just like we talked about with the curb line. Those are trade-offs, that you get. If you go in there at all, you have to become ADA compliant and all of that. And so, in the end, I think you're going to end up with a better property here.
I would think so. Well, I appreciate it. I don't want to consume any additional time for you, but if there are any questions, you can always reach out. Okay.
So let's just from a procedural standpoint, I'll move that we support, as you're saying, in two different parts. I'll say the main thing that we can do is that center footprint with the ramp, the parking, the general concept. I think as a board, we can say that we, as design moves forward, we would approve something similar to this. That way the council knows that we at least can support that part of it, and then, then we can make another motion if we want to do something to support the project as a whole. So I'll move that we approve the changes that have been suggested at the design up to this point. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that motion carries, so at least you know where we stand with that, and then then the financial is the secondary point. So it sounds like we have a majority of the board at minimum who supports the project as a whole too, so that can be conveyed to the council. There's a council member here. Do you have anything you would like to say, Ms. Beck?
We'll just need specifics on what the cost of the ramp and parking spots will be, and then consider that with whatever bigger amount we're looking to contribute to the project.
We'll get to that. We just don't have it.
Okay. So going forward, I guess the city of Jasper will present a formal request of some kind for a contribution, and I think that would be a good next step so the council knows what to consider.
I appreciate your time today.
Yeah,
and
thanks so
your
much.
support. And I do appreciate all the input we've received. I mean, I can tell you that we've had regular attendance and input from council representatives, and specifically Brett, I appreciate, your involvement, Becky's involvement, Mike Leester's involvement. I mean, they were at the meetings regularly. Elmer's been involved in some of them. And in discussions, I know you guys have been involved in some of them, so appreciate all the
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Come back to order in 2 minutes.
Sorry. Good luck.
Hey guys, how are you doing? Yeah.
I don't know that I know. Steve might know that.
Usually Dustin.
Because I thought that's what it said, and I was like,
Drove through rain on the way down, on the way back.
she didn't look sporty. She didn't look.
They didn't have a steering light. The wipers on our van, whether they're new or not, they're so good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but we get some sun. Yeah. Totally.
I see it right there.
I was always bicycle there.
That's all I. Yes.
I've been looking at drawings.
I don't think they are. I don't think
Yeah, that would be nice. But no, I thought even the guy at the top
Yeah.
was similar, the steeple, all of that. Wow, that's pretty neat.
Well, these architecture firms.
There you go, there.
Whole walkway up in there.
There is.
Right into the big one.
This changed it. And in 19, they did the internet. You weren't gonna see it if it was, this was a door, that's what they're gonna redo. Yeah, so nobody will ever see it. That was really neat. Yeah. Then you look at it, it's a little crunched, a little different. All right, it's after 9 o'clock. The next thing on the agenda will be Gail Reitman with the vacation of part of a public street in Celestine and an ordinance to do so. That's what is under consideration, so if there's someone else, please. Good morning.
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 So we just formally say what your request
Oh,
is
I'm
again?
here to vacate New Orleans, part of New Orleans Street in Celestine, Indiana.
Is this the same one you saw us about a while back? Okay, this is new.
This is new. We had purchased property from my aunt recently, and this road is also being used, and it's not being used correctly because people are going through our yard and everything. They're using it as a road, but it really isn't. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's our property because where it's at, everyone on the property goes through. Because there's RVs, right? There's RVs down there, and there's trailers, and they think they can take the road. Well, our yard looks rough, and so does the neighbors. So we're all wanting to close our part, just a little part between Bruner's and the Ripens. Steffi's owned it initially. That's what we want to do.
And I don't know how many years ago, let's say 4 years ago, whenever they had the Celestine Fest, like down in that corner, they had like bounce houses and stuff.
Everything, right, but they don't do that anymore. They're the church.
But just for my mind,
That's it, yes.
And the thing that whenever I went and looked at this property, it kind of goes downhill, right? I mean, New Orleans kind of goes to a kind of a peak and then it goes downhill again until it hits. So how far are you wanting to move here? I did study this, but it's been probably over.
He's here for that.
So is it gonna go all the way to New Orleans or to Ellsworth? Or is
No.
it just up to where Bishop Street would
I
cross?
can show you on
Yeah,
there.
please do.
He's got it on his computer.
Yeah, it makes more sense to me this way. Okay.
Here's happy hour right
Yeah.
here.
So you wanna vacate this section
Yes.
or the whole section?
Well, just this section, we own these two lots here. And,
And you own this thing too, or is this
no,
Bruner?
this here's Sam Brewer.
And did Mr. Bruner have any opposition?
He wants to, cause, well, like she was saying, I was going over here and he was out in his yard and the Jeep coming down through here and this here's all blocked right now. And instead of, well, they couldn't get through, so they just drove through his backyard actually, and then he said, yes, we definitely want to. Because right now, that's looking down the road. It's all full of RVs and
Right,
the
so,
whole street is.
so they really probably shouldn't be using all of that because they don't own it. But I do know that
But
that's,
that's not our complaint, we just.
yeah, we're not, so what they're saying is this area here, people are using it as if it's theirs, but it is a dedicated street. They're wanting to go from here to there. So in reality, the person that used the Jeep that went down there probably isn't in violation of anything. They're not breaking any rules.
Except when he went through the guy's yard.
Through the yard would be the difference. They could have went down and, I guess,
The road's pretty rough.
And you said it's blocked off now?
Yes, right here is full of campers and RVs. And this picture here, this is what.
And that's
right
one,
now.
one part of the,
Yes.
right.
okay.
So they're using it. In practice, this is owned by them, this is owned by him. In reality, legally, it's owned by the county.
Right.
Right.
So they're wanting to vacate this section right here, from here to here. Mr. Schneider, have you looked at this?
I have, yes. And with reference to Mr. Bruner, he signed off on the petition as well, so it's signed by all the joining landowners.
And then,
if I recall, it does run north of Bishop, you said?
that would be my question too, is it going to stop at the end of the Bruner Wrighton property here, or does it extend? Stops here? Because that way this road could still be developed if needed, that's not what they're asking. So as long as that's the case, I'm satisfied to move forward with it.
So we're talking about New Orleans Street from 164.
No,
So when that
just
vacates,
from-
how does that work? Does that property get split in the
So
middle?
half
Half go
Half to the east, half to the west,
Okay.
and otherwise north and south, depending on which way the road runs.
Here to there, from, what is that, St. Charles?
Yeah.
It's kind of like what
St.
St.
Charles to Bishop.
Yeah.
That one block.
They just
Just,
split.
just a little
So
bitty
sometimes
spot.
you look at maps. and you'll see these sections
Just
are-
two
It's
blocks.
called New Orleans Street, it comes right off.
Vacated.
One-
There's actually a
one block
sign
in
there.
New Orleans.
There's actually a road sign that says New Orleans, but there's no road. But it is a road, but it's not paved or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah, and that, it's part of the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, but you're not talking about that section.
No.
You're just
Here.
talking about from
Just from,
St. Charles to,
Just been,
Yeah.
people have had a
Yes.
chance
Right.
to.
Vernon and Vernon Paper and the Herald.
Yes.
And the Spurgeon was on the 13th of October.
Two blocks
in here.
There's two,
Just one block, it's two parcels.
two parcels.
Yes.
Two parcels.
Oh, yes, one block, yeah.
Two parcels, yeah.
Saying it wrong.
Developed part of
There
that
you go.
property over there,
What?
that's close by there, am I right?
It's close to Jeremy Betts, yes.
Right, and I'm surprised we didn't hear from him, because I didn't know that.
I'm sure he knows.
Okay,
I'm positive he does. It's
So
a
it
small
looks
town
here, here.
right,
and everybody knew we were doing it.
See how these little partial ones up
Right.
here, partial ones here, partial ones here, that's times that Gail or someone previous to her have been in to do the same thing, so they're kind of taking it away piecemeal.
This is our last road, you won't see us again.
Well, we're really lucky visiting.
That's okay, I think we're good.
So Brent, you're satisfied that this it doesn't impede any future work on Bishop that may go east-west or anything with Celestine, St. Charles Street, anything there, we're in good shape otherwise?
Yeah.
Mr. Schneider, the notice appears to be in order?
Yeah. There was a notice I ran, I did look at it. Was there a publisher's affidavit?
I got that from Kate, that she sent me.
I didn't bring mine. Yeah, I have them.
And I put on the link to publish.
October 13th was the, starting and the 9th was the Herald. I know the date.
The Herald was the 9th and the Purdue was October 13th.
I don't really have a problem with it, but I wonder if we couldn't wait until our following meeting, just to make sure nobody reaches out to us.
So there would be the notice is for today, for a
Okay.
public hearing,
Okay,
on the ordinance.
so that's it. I just know I'm a guy that don't get the paper, so
And the notice
I would never
is,
see this.
the notice has to be published, and if it's signed by all adjoining landowners, which is the case here, it doesn't go to any adjoining neighbors, because
Okay.
we're not going north of those lot lines.
Okay.
We're not impacting Bishop Street, we're stopping at its southern boundary.
That being said, we could vote no, and they can republish and do it in 2 weeks if you feel strongly about it. Otherwise, I
No,
would.
I'm not that strongly about it, I'm just surprised we didn't hear more about it.
I think in practice, it won't change anything.
Because the road you vacated behind your house, totally get it, that was a big ravine.
Right.
This one, it's part of the original kind of thought mark that it seems like at some point might have went through. But I don't really have a problem with it. I just, like I said, I'm a little surprised that none of the neighbors.
No, I think they're all in favor because just a lot goes on there sometimes.
Right.
That
Right.
we can all approve of, they go four-wheeling and whatever, stuff like that, and if we're liable, they wreck on my property, I'm responsible for them.
Right now, I fix ruts and mow it.
Right.
And really what they're doing is they will now have control of this section. If they want to develop it or a future person wants to develop it, they can.
Come back
Can
and
do so.
ask for the road.
It can be part of their
Absolutely.
design.
Replat it, yeah.
Okay.
We just don't like the free riding.
So when would this come into effect, Mr. Schneider, if this is approved today? Immediately upon enforcement?
I believe so. You have the ordinance, Sandy.
Ordinance shall be in force, in effect from and after its adoption, so it would be immediately. So if you were wanting your opportunity to drive down that road, you're gonna miss it if you stop. I think I'm okay with it. I will move that, we approve ordinance number 2021-35, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of DuBois County vacating part of the dedicated public streets in the town of Celestine, Indiana, as legally described in there.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Anyone opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything, it's fine.
Anything.
I just need to go buy me some blue pens.
Our water between the lines.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're finished, let's go to hang out and see government in action.
I gotta go see another government action.
Okay. See, I couldn't be a little bit. There you go.
city or something.
They did, I have them.
Or-
Okay,
We have,
I got them.
I know they have.
They sent it to me, I just didn't bring them with me.
That ordinance, you're probably going to record that.
I remember. All right, thank you.
Next up is Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter with the Sheriff's Department update. Hello, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I apologize for, I don't really know exactly what I'm updating you on. So I would look for feedback or questions, and from here on out, maybe I can be a little bit more prepared. But as of today goes, I know Chad invited me to the meeting to give an update, but I wasn't really given an agenda on what to
Sure.
give the update on, so.
I think one thing that was, well, a couple things. One, you could, I guess, share with the whole board your feelings of how the construction project is going. That's always a topic of public interest and probably the interest of the board. Another thing I think that was brought up to the board was historically, at least as far as the last sheriff, whenever a new vehicles were bought, whenever contracts were signed and things like that, a lot of that came to the board for just another layer of oversight. So I think that is that accurate, that this is maybe something just so so that the public and the commissioners are aware of where we are with that. So maybe if you want to start with the building.
Sure.
Portion.
Yep, but I think the construction is going well. We had a meeting last Wednesday, and I think they said they lost a day or two because of the rain, but other than that, everything's going well. You can go back behind it. I know Commissioner Blesshair, we walked back there last Wednesday, and you can kind of, so feel free to come up and we can go back there and you can kind of visualize like where some of the rooms are at now, and it's coming along very well. So I know that we're in discussion with the 911 move up there, and how that's going to be. I got a drawing from Stuart over the weekend about the layout of that and where that's going to go, and so I think everything's going well. It's going to be a long process yet, but I think it's going well as we are now.
I would say, I'd like to thank the sheriff. He's been a good partner throughout the whole process. So even before he became sheriff, he was involved, and he's been involved pretty much daily since then. Mr. Wilson at 911 is involved, and so there's some things that we're modifying as we go through, just as they make more sense as we see how it unrolls. So part of the existing structure is being turned into EMA, and then 911, and then there's another block that at least partially possibly be storage, depending on the cost. And we're trying to figure out where is a good place to make it a secure place. In other words, EMA is its own entity, 911 is its own entity, and the sheriff's secure space is his entity. So we're continually working through those. And
yeah, the way it's laid out, I know that I sent the email on there. So you have, right now our cell blocks are numbered, are lettered, I'm sorry. So EMA is going to go in what we call A and B block, 911 to go in C and D, and then you have E and F that are combined. And they want to use an E block, which I'm fine with that as far as putting that into storage, but I don't feel comfortable putting future inmates into F block because it's secured, but it's still so close. So I'd like to vacate that one in the future and maybe turn it into some offices or storage for us or whatever the case may be, just to get inmates further away from where it's so close to 911 and EMA. Not that they would get there, but it's just having them a little further away is always more beneficial. But I think it's really going well, and I think everybody's working together great on it.
And one of the things I look at every time I look at the maps is I try to have a vision of what the future will be like after Sheriff Kleinhelter is no longer there and I'm no longer there. Will a future sheriff have some flexibility with the space that's left, and that we're not just meeting today's needs, that we look at the needs for the future. And so that's going pretty well, I think. Every week it's, hey, we want to make this change, not the sheriff, but someone, we need to make this change, and it's going to cost more money, and it's my job to always hammer down and say, well, maybe we don't need that, or this is what we do need. But as I learn more about construction, each of our selected contractors has a a fund within what we've already approved that can make, because they foresee some of these changes, and then there's a larger contingency if there was some large change that we didn't notice. If, for example, when they started doing the concrete, if they found that there was a cave underneath it, and and it needed something major done, there are monies for that. But pretty well, we're staying on budget, and there's a few changes here and there, but nothing that wasn't over and above what we had foreseen. So it's a good project, and we have good participation on those bi-weekly meetings. The auditor has been there, and all the interested people.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that you're gonna see some more changes, because I think as things progress, especially when they get into the jail, the existing jail now, the way it's laid out, I think you're gonna see, I hope, I might be wrong, but it's kind of hard to look in the future 2 years down and see what you're gonna need when we started laying this out, and then once it starts coming to fruition, you may see a couple of changes here and there, but I wouldn't think anything major.
And it's neat to see the masons out there doing their work, so that we're starting to go vertical in some of the areas.
Yeah.
So the kitchen's getting done, some of the connecting portions are getting done, and probably within a month, we're gonna have metal columns and metal framing up on the new jail pod. So I think that's when the public will start seeing.
Yeah, once he goes above, start seeing, I think from even below the hill down there by Hucks or something, you'll start seeing structure go up, which is neat. And then the steel cells themselves are coming in the first week of January. So everything's going smoothly as of right now. So
Has the access road issue been resolved
yes,
to those
between the
chillers.
Yeah.
air conditioner or whatever, not air handlers.
Chillers.
the chillers, yeah.
Chillers, there we go.
Yep, they got that road in and using, so it's being used already.
Well, no, I think what he's talking about is the one that is directly behind community correction. That's
Between the buildings.
right. So last Wednesday, I went out and walked the class to see what exactly they're asking, what it'll be, and I'm still trying to pin them down on some cost estimates. So it's basically going to be a nice rock road, and they're moving a couple chillers around. So the design had one of the chillers kind of right in front of a utility door, which it doesn't make sense. They're moving one of them slightly, and I said, I'm always, is this really necessary? I start with what's wrong with driving through the grass. Start there, and then they tell me what's wrong with driving through the grass, and then they explain to me the kind of equipment that they need and what kind of work will be done back there. I'm still trying to get a pin down on a cost, but I think Les told me maybe $40,000 total when you talk about moving the chiller. One's a little further away, so you have a little extra materials. The price of compacting the road and putting the stone down, and so it's still in process.
Okay.
But I think everyone's agreeing that it's necessary.
Yes, yeah. The road is actually there, just stays, and
Yeah.
they're using it now, but yeah, like Chad said, there's no rock or nothing on it. But
It's unimproved.
yes.
But
Yeah.
there's a solution.
Commissioner Brahms, what can we talk about next with the sheriff about the vehicle purchases and things like that?
The email that you sent, that was good. Might expand a little bit on that, on population. I wrote 3 things down here that I would like to hear about occasionally, and one is population. The other is personnel, if there are personnel changes or anything like that going on, or any concerns in that area. And the third would be property. By property, the commissioners own the property that own the jail and all of the property that goes with the jail. Right now, with the construction going on, that's kind of not a no-brainer, but I mean, it's kind of automatic. We're going through a lot of property changes there. But beyond the construction, the fleet, for example, would probably be the biggest thing when there are changes there, when you're purchasing new equipment, and how do you go about doing that? And
Like as far as vehicles?
Vehicles.
We look at, and I know I apologize and I'll do a better job of that, but we had always just kind of looked at where our the vehicles that are on the fleet now, how many miles they have, what the maintenance costs that they are costing us in maintenance, and that's kind of where we gauge whether it makes more sense to buy a new vehicle or to keep that one for the next year, or to even get some fixed.
And when you make that determination, how do you go about investigating what the new vehicle, or I guess how do you determine where you purchase that vehicle? And
We usually-
what the proper cost is on that vehicle?
Well, right now, the state always has a state bid for like the state police cars. And right now they're with Dodge. So you have the Dodge Charger or the Dodge Durango or the Dodge pickup, which is primarily your cheapest vehicles because that's what the state has put in their bid. That's what they're going to buy, or Dodge won that bid, so to speak. So there's really, I usually look at 3 different places. Locally, Sternberg's, we go to Washington Chrysler, and we just started using John Jones, which is in Seymour area. With where fleet is at right now, nobody can get us vehicles except John Jones. They are a huge police manufacturer. So when they put in orders, they put in for hundreds of cars.
They actually have a lot.
They have a
just
lot.
for
Police.
police.
Mhm.
And so when you're
So-
saying you're going out to these places, I thought they had, any 3 of them, in this case, had to sell it at whatever the contract price is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so.
Now, there's differences that you can get. I mean, it's sometimes, if you want a V8 versus a V6, or you want steel wheels versus aluminum wheels, just different things like that, modifications that we may or may not upgrade depending on what actually is that state bid. Which we'll get a copy of what the state bid is, and then we'll talk it over with usually the dealership. But with that said, we just traded in 2 of our pool cars last week to get a Dodge Durango, and the only place we could get one from was John Jones. And we opted to trade in 2 of those because one of them was going to cost us $8,000 to repair with 120-some thousand miles on it. So we felt that was an enormous amount of money for something that we didn't know was going to last or not last. And the other one was, we didn't even get a check, but it was starting to sound maybe like the rear end was going out or something like that. So we did not even investigate how much that was going to cost. We decided to trade in those 2 and just get one good one for the transport guys.
Do you ever go outside of the state bid and buy vehicles?
Try not to, no, unless we can't get one.
Right.
Which right now is just, you don't know. I mean, you honestly do not know. The thing with John Jones, like last week, it's been in the process a couple of months now. We've been trying to get one. There is none to get. So they kind of, they got a market on it. And you're paying for that too.
I'm understanding better, with the state bid and that sort of thing. But my concern was, for example, when highway or some other departments purchase, when they purchase a vehicle, they come in and we make a motion, second, and approve the purchase of that vehicle. We don't do that with the sheriff's department, and my question was why, and I don't know why. And I'm, whether we need to, or whether that's just something we don't need to for the highways either, but we just do it, or should we be doing it with the sheriff's department as well? Should we have, you mentioned some variants, the wheels or the various other accessories that might be included in that vehicle. Is that something that we should have approval on? I mean, I certainly would work with your recommendation. Don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning what you're doing. I'm just questioning the process that we're doing, and are we doing it correctly? Are you getting the proper approval from this board that you should be getting? And that's something I need to. I'm just questioning.
I do not know that answer.
Probably with the sheriff's department, like any other one, any contract or anything that gets signed should come through the commissioners, because the commissioners are statutorily responsible for any contracts on behalf of the county. So you're probably signing agreements and things with them that I guess maybe that portion should be approved, even if we just said, we approve that you do it. There, possibly. But basically, the sheriff is given a budget yearly, and he makes determinations based on the budget of which vehicles are replaced.
Well, I know that the budget is not gonna be there starting next year, so I will have to get the approval from the council when I do this. So, I mean, if it's another step over here, that's fine.
You mean you're gonna be doing it per transaction, taking it out of the fund, is that right? Okay. We do some of that with the highway, has some expenditures, they do the same way. But you're right, because the health department, when we bought vehicles, it came through here, and EMA.
And the vehicles are ultimately property of the commissioners, am I right?
They are, they're all registered to the commissioners, and that's why.
Yeah, and if we weren't going through the whole construction process out there now, and you wanted to move a wall or something like that, technically, we have to approve that, because that's our property. And, you know, the vehicles or anything else now, you know, when it gets down to the office supplies and things like that, we don't get involved, but the major equipment changes, we should be involved in, I think.
I think the sheriff's probably open to that.
Oh, absolutely. My goal on the vehicle aspect is we have 22 deputies that are driving cars. So I would like to have the 22, obviously those cars, and then have what we call pool cars, which are transport officers, or when an officer's car is broke down, or whatever the case may be, is having, like, my goal would be to have 4 of them ready to go for the transport officers to use. And then also, I mean, we just had a rash of accidents recently. We got one that's in the basement now that's, I think Commissioner Blessinger saw last week, that's totaled. We're still waiting on the confirmation from there, but he has nothing to drive. So, you know, having a pool car that is completely outfitted, just like their work car, so that when something like that happens, they just move right over to that, and that's now their car. And then that gives me the opportunity to come in here and to go to the council to get the approval to get a new car, instead of having an officer without a car. And then I know I sent this, I think in the last meeting, I think, you know, our transport officers are constantly driving every day. They're driving all over the state to get inmates, and they're putting a lot of miles on, and to get those miles evened out over 2 or 3 or 4 cars, then when a deputy needs that car, they go in there with a pretty much new car, but then a new car goes back into the, so to speak, pool car. I know it's kind of maybe hard to grasp the concept of that, but.
So when you're doing transport, you're not always taking a van.
Right, you want to take something that's a little less.
Depending on what you're.
Depending on where you're
trading.
going and how many you're getting.
If you're getting 3 people, you'll take a different vehicle than if you're picking up a single person.
Right, you know,
So
going to
right
Knox
now, you
County
said
for
your
one.
current fleet is 22 vehicles
That is for the deputies, yeah.
for the deputies, and then what are your float cars? What are those?
Well, we got one, we just got one outfitted Dodge Durango that's ready. We got the van, and we have another Dodge Durango waiting to be outfitted from Harmonic Electronics.
So but your goal would be to have 2 more vehicles on top of what that is.
Yeah.
And I'll say that in some counties, they share vehicles. In other big counties, everyone has their own vehicle. And I know, just the only reason I know that is because my brother was a deputy that had a vehicle. When he started, he didn't get a vehicle for like 5 years. He had to share one. So when he would drive his personal vehicle to the location, the sheriff's department, get a vehicle, drive it, do his work for the day, and then come back and somebody else would drive it that evening. So that's how they did it. And then after he got some seniority, then he got a take-home vehicle. I don't think any deputies like that. They prefer.
Well, I don't think that would be good for the public. If you have an officer that lives in Celestine and they're coming on at 6 p.m. and you have an accident, they can call him out. He's got his car there. Versus, okay, now I got to drive all the way to Jasper, get my car, and then drive all the way back up to Celestine. I mean, I think it's.
And it's nice having a police vehicle in a neighborhood. I think that helps. For example, I drive up Mill Street, and I don't know if he's still there, but there used to always be a police vehicle, which Jasper police officer's car there, and oh, better watch my speed. It always just reminds me that
Mhm.
law enforcement is around.
When I saw Steve Allen, same way.
Right.
See the car there, and it's like, oh, yeah.
It's good to have a reminder. So I'm not saying that we
Yeah.
reduce the number of vehicles or anything, but I just wanted to say, for example, that we wouldn't necessarily have to fund all of them, but I think it's good if we can. Commissioner?
I was just gonna say, well, it sounds like, with the change in what you're doing with the council, that at the beginning of the year, then we maybe try to work on the process a little bit to where you come in here and say, this is what we're doing. I mean, I don't necessarily think you need to be here at every meeting or anything like that, but unless it's.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
This is what we're doing and we want to trade this vehicle out because of this it's got this many miles on it, it's this old, so on. This is what's available, this is what we're going for, and we're going to be seeking council funding on this, and then we approve that particular change in property.
Or in this case, if the sheriff does intend to, if he thinks it's ideal for his fleet to have 2 additional vehicles for rotation, we would have to approve those.
We need to approve that.
Then the council would have to approve the funding.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think anybody would have a problem.
No, I don't.
That'd be good for us, and if you came
Yeah.
once a month or once every other month, I mean, that would be.
I don't know how that process was before, and I don't know why I was never given that. So I'll apologize for that, not coming in here for that. I just didn't know I was supposed to.
Yeah, I don't know either. So,
We're all just very happy to see you.
yeah.
Right.
Population?
Population, we had
In your
87 as
report,
of this
I
morning.
noticed, population has certainly risen in the last several months, 6 months or so. Do you see a trend or a reason?
No, I mean, I think the population went down through COVID because of the lack of proactive policing, so to speak. We along with the other agencies, ISP, Huntingbird, Jasper, were responding to emergency calls. And I think you're out there now seeing traffic stops, and obviously the general population is more active since they're able to do things, and I think you're going to continue to see an increase.
So it's more of a getting back to normal.
I think it's getting back to normal.
We were.
And I don't think we're normal yet. I don't think we're fully there, but I think we're heading that way.
And again, that's over not just the stated capacity, that's over the actual capacity again.
Yeah.
And so that increases risk to jailers, to the inmates themselves, and it's another thing to reinforce that it's a good idea that we're adding additional safer space.
Yeah, and we still have no reason or no way to classify our inmates. So we're still having to put some of the, we don't hold a lot of misdemeanors in our jail, but we do have some. So there are misdemeanors in with felons, and we try to keep our sex offenders segregated together, not with the general population. But sometimes that's not always possible to do either. So once we get into the new jail, we'll have a little more opportunity to classify better.
Okay. Talking about misdemeanor versus felony, the level 6 funding. How has that been going as far as the state reimbursing us for level 6 funding?
We don't get any level 6 reimbursement, primarily because most of our level 6s are put on work release. So you have to house them in your jail to get that reimbursement. And then if we probably, I think last year we averaged 2. And if you're averaging that low, they kind of just go over you.
When you say average, you're saying you had an average of 2 in per day?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you deal with Vanderbilt County, who has 400, the money's going to go to them. It's kind of like the level 6 funding. there's a pot of money that the state has set aside for level 6 funding. And when that pot of money is gone, it's gone. They don't give you any more. So if that gone in July or August, the rest of the year, whoever has level, they're not gonna get any.
I was at a meeting recently of the Indiana County Commissioners legislative discussion, and that was brought up. As to, we need some more legislation or clarification or guidance on that. And my understanding from that meeting was that if you have a level 6 offender in your jail for 1 day or 1 hour, in other words, he's booked in that jail, that number gets turned into the state. And then they will take all of those that get turned in and you get your share of that number. But even if he was only there for a day, he or she was only there for a day, that counts.
It does.
And they were talking even about some people, some counties, I guess, not inflating their numbers, but working the system a little bit to try to increase that number. In other words, if somebody gets booked into your jail and then they go to work release, well, the longer you hold them before they go to work release, well, it wasn't even so much how long you hold them, but to be sure that they get booked into the jail before they go to work release, so that they count toward that number. So, I don't know. I guess I want to make sure that we're getting what we deserve, and that sort of thing. So
That, more than likely, no.
Okay.
We're not, but I don't think we'll ever will on the level 6s, because they're not gonna give us that $37.50 a day, which it's $37.50 a day, but let's be honest, it costs about $55 or $60 a day to house an inmate. So that's been a contentious of for years, trying to get that increased. And they did just a couple years ago increase it from $35 a day to $37.50 a day. And that's why you're seeing a lot of county jails that are trying to push, or a lot of sheriffs trying to push this back on the DOC. Like, I mean, they're sentenced to DOC, so DOC should take them, and that's DOC's responsibility, and that's why they say they're going to pay you. However, like I said, they only have this pot of money, and when that pot of money's gone, it doesn't matter whether you have them or not. So we're turning them in.
okay.
And the money goes straight, honestly, the money goes straight to our general fund. I can't tell you whether we've been paid or not, but I highly doubt that we have been. Along with most counties. Now, your bigger counties, like I said, are getting some, but they're not getting what they deserve either.
Okay. Are you on personnel, or are you up to?
Our deputies are full staff.
You got full staff?
We're full staff. We got one that's going through training now, and he'll leave for the academy in January, which is 17 weeks there. So he'll graduate sometime around May, I guess. And then we're kind of going backwards now because we couldn't get him into the academy until January. So he's going through he came from the jail. So he's going through his first couple of months of FTO program, field training, and then he'll go to the academy, and then he'll come back and do the final FTO, the field training, and then he'll be ready to go. So we're looking, like I said, it's about a year process to get him through the academy and trained to go by himself. But he is he makes us full staff there. And then last Thursday, we had a jail officer that she went and sought other employment, and we went through some interviews with who we had on the application process, and then hopefully this week we'll make an offer to another jail officer, and that'll bring us to full staff in the jail.
I don't know that I have any other questions this morning.
So what were your three categories? You said you had three questions earlier, property, staff, and what was your other one?
Property, the three P, property, personnel, and population.
Okay. And one thing that I guess inflated the population maybe slightly a couple months ago was you have to hold some people that should have been shipped off because they weren't accepting due to COVID.
Oh,
Is that,
yeah.
and then maybe 2 or 3 people?
That's correct. DOC just had, a rash of COVID go through their RDC. So whenever you take someone to prison, you take them to RDC, Regional Diagnostic Center. Everybody in the state goes through this place, and they delayed their intake because they had a COVID outbreak there. So there for a while, we were holding them a lot longer than normal. Normally, when they're sentenced to DOC, a level 5 or above, we'll take them to RDC within a week or 2 at the most. They'll take them, and now they put a hold on it. They're only taking like 50 a month or something. That's throughout the whole state. So we are holding them a little longer than normal. I don't know, as of today, I don't know how many we have. I know we have a couple that are ready to go, but I don't know the exact number of how many. But we just hold them until DOC says they're ready to take them. And they're good about letting us know when they can take all or how many we have, 2 or 3 or whatever the case may be. So.
And I believe you're on the agenda for the next meeting regarding some retirement benefits possible, so perhaps we can attack that then.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions for the sheriff. Mr. Outsetter? Mr. Bronze?
Nope.
Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
See you next
Thanks, guys.
couple weeks.
All right.
Okay, we have our 9:30 agenda items. Looks like we have the county treasurer is here, so we'll take her first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you asked me last time I was here to look into the kiosks, and since then I have decided after talking about remodeling my office and the auditor's office, and I decided to take that off the table. So, and maybe bring it back in a year or 2. So, just want to let you all know.
Anything else?
No,
And
that's it.
and is there a reason for
Um,
taking it off?
well, it just seems like we've been discussing it for a couple of years and it's not moving forward, so I just thought in the best interest of everyone, like, just take it off, and maybe if there's money in the future, maybe we can, like, bring it back up then, revisit the issue. So,
How are collections?
I think we're about, I didn't realize that my system, so I should be able to go in and like see where we are percentage wise. And apparently for whatever reason, no one has ever asked for that before. So when I checked into it with our software people, they're like, oh, you should have had this function. I'm not sure why you don't, but they turned it on. So we're like about 1/3 of the way through, because it'll show me in each township how much of the collections we've done.
Of
And
what
we're-
should be coming in for second?
Yeah, so we're about 1/3 of the way done with our November collections. So, yeah, but yeah, we're getting money, so yay.
So you, and maybe you don't have the answer to this question then either then, in the end, generally in the end, what ends up being delinquent? What percentage ends up being delinquent?
I don't know, I'll have to look, but, I know dollar wise, probably around $5 million is usually not collected at the end of the year. Around, yeah, that seems to be, like, when I've looked, that seems to be the average, like,
Okay,
But the vast majority of that gets collected
eventually.
Yes.
and with a penalty, so.
right. And
I would
some of that,
didn't want the public to think, oh, well, how do people get by without paying?
Right,
They
no,
pay.
no, they pay.
There's
And some of that might be like weed liens, sewer liens, it's not all just property taxes either, you know, business property, personal property, so, but, yeah. It does get collected, I do my best to make sure I go after them.
Sounds good, I don't have any other questions.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank
great,
you.
thanks.
I'll be over after a while, pay mine.
Okay. I
I just checked to make sure somebody took your.
I like that, that's fun. Okay. Is there anyone else in attendance that had some business? Okay, so we'll just go through these other items. And Purdue office space update is on the agenda here. The only thing that I know different from the last time is that I believe the county council said they weren't supportive of spending the funds for the location, the central building. That's the only update I know, other than I'm certain that the Purdue Extension, DuBois County Extension Office is still interested in improving their office space, but I don't know if there's any traffic on that. Either of you have any comments on or know anything about that?
No, I don't. I haven't talked to anyone on it. I just know what the council did as well. So no, I don't.
Okay. So at this point, no further action needed on our side, other than unless we want to take some individual action. So, EMA surplus items, and then there were also surplus items from the courtroom. I'm going to ask the board to hold off on declaring these because I haven't had time to look at it in any detail. If that's okay with you to move it 2 weeks, I think and if I thought these items were in the way or causing problems, I probably wouldn't make this. But I think the third
So-
floor.
You're saying both of them?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to really look at either.
There's a copy of the list if you want, if they didn't have.
Did you guys have a list of both?
That's all on the email.
What was emailed to us, yes.
I printed, well, I printed the second one because the court just gave it to me Friday. The EMA one, I think I gave to you,
EMA, I know I have.
that I gave to you next week. So
And I guess, so that was from Nick, all right.
oh, you will.
I don't really know. Commissioner Ross? I guess one thing we can talk about on here, the one thing that stood out for EMA, I thought there's one iPhone 11 replaced due to phone does not hold a charge. Okay, I thought, okay, makes sense. Phone doesn't work. What should we do in a situation like that? Because I thought, I'm gonna go to eBay and see what a broken iPhone 11 costs or what it's worth. And they average about $95 for one in this condition. So what do we do with an asset that's worth $95 of taxpayer money? Do we just say, yeah, pitch it, or where do these things end up? And what is the proper way to go through? So I haven't looked at all this other stuff, but I know that had, that's not an insignificant value, to me at least. One time over my career as a county official, I believe I've taken county assets and sold them on eBay, and I turned the asset into the general fund. It was maybe ink cartridges, the toners or something that we didn't have a machine that they fit for. And I'll tell you, on me, it was a pain in my butt to do it. I did it on my private time through my private account. I just brought in receipts to the commissioners that said, I sold it for $50. It was $7 in listing fees. The shipping was this, and
It was hardly worth doing it.
and I mean, for the county's benefit, there's $40 extra in the general fund, I guess. But if I don't know. So I just wanted to say that I don't know. I wanted to bring it up for discussion. What y'all thought of that?
Yeah, I don't know, other than short of setting up some kind of an auction or some kind of
There's a
garage sale.
I believe that there's a county eBay or a municipality eBay within the state of Indiana, if I recall, that I have to look at it further. I just remember coming up at Region 15 meetings before. With regards to the phone, I'm not sure what our process is on replacing a phone. Was there not and you don't have to have the answer to this, a trade-in option or a trade-in value
I don't think it was a trade-in.
to our provider?
I have 3 iPhones from the
So that's
91
if you're
cents
trading,
that
right?
are just right now, but they don't.
Every time we've done it, they tell you to keep rolling.
They look
That's what they've told me is to just keep
never-
rolling.
Greg Maru, trying to mail it out.
I don't know if that's state or not, but
They've never asked for it.
I've got Steve and I's, both our old ones from our last round, because they're still pretty decent, so one of them ends up broken, we gotta back up.
And that's what I have sitting on my desk. I have 3 of them from 91 sitting on my desk right now.
Of what?
iPhones that have been replaced or not used anymore. So they're sitting there like spares in case somebody would need one, but usually I can call Verizon and get one within a day, so it's.
So Commissioner just showed me something where there's a company where you can email them, they'll send you a package and they'll pay you, they tell you upfront what they'll pay you for it. This is $44 or something they'll give you, and then they pay for the shipping, they pay for all that. As far as that eBay thing for the county people, I missed kind of part of the discussion, but isn't that usually for equipment that's just excess, not broken or obsolete? Is that correct?
Gov deals.
So it would be if we have a grader that we don't need or something, we would say we have it for sale and somebody else could use it, but it wouldn't be, we have a grader that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's junk. So anyway, just something to think about, I guess, and if it's okay with the board, I will, would like to at least look at these items, before we make a determination. Anybody opposed to giving me a couple weeks on it?
Nope, I'm fine with me.
Would you mind putting that on the next agenda for probably 5 minutes while I cover it? Ms. Bagman, I'm sorry to keep picking on you, but you're here. So do you have any thoughts on what to do with assets that have value, that are surplus to them?
We were just discussing, some of the stuff gets so time intensive that it eats up any of the value of somebody's time, but I'll be out of the recycling center.
Take it to the recycling center, is that what you said? Yeah. What is the minimum? If that phone, if we can get $50 for it, is it worth the time to do it? I don't know for sure.
It depends, if it takes $50 worth of their employee's time, no.
The other thing that I see with this, like last time, they voted to throw away stuff that I thought was worth keeping, which is fine. We are smarter than I firmly believe that. But in this case, if we discard these things, they probably have value to somebody, but how do we disperse those things? Or do we say we can't disperse something of value because that's unfair to others? All of it has to be trashed, or all of it has to go to.
Well, I think I know when they were going through that, a lot of it with the courts is the old recording system that has no value. And they can't keep storing it because it's just taking up space.
And you sell it as a lot. I mean, could you say, here's all the things that we're getting rid of?
I believe the city of Jasper has an annual surplus sale.
I've been to one of them.
Well, that's what I mentioned a while ago, a garage sale or something.
Correct. You sell it all as a lot, and either you take the whole bundle or you take none.
Yeah, if
All
you feel
want
there's
is the
value in
iPhone
there.
11, you buy the whole box of stuff, you take that iPhone 11 out. You take care of the rest.
And I believe the library, when they relocated, they had other items that were left behind, that they also did a auction type setup, and those were things that, again, it's where we store it.
It's the storage problem that we're having.
But at this point, the court steps on the third floor where all of our junk goes to die.
Well, I think that's all 3 courts.
And then the
They made
EMA,
a one
I
big
think
list.
they're okay.
EMA cleaned out the vault down there. I mean, how long do you store stuff?
Right, so we'll make a final determination next time. Okay, next up. Substance Abuse Council claim. For a brief summary, the Substance Abuse Council, I think they just do a yearly grant process now. In the past, they've done it bi-yearly, but I think it's changed just a single time a year. Numerous local entities will put together grant proposals, turn them into the Substance Abuse Council. The executives of the Substance Abuse Council meet someplace, review each of them, and make approvals or denials or change modifications to those grant applications. This year, they took a 6-hour, it was a 6-hour day. It is a full volunteer board. The only paid person is the Substance Abuse Council Director. And I believe the pay for that position is roughly $10,000 a year, $12,000 a year maybe.
No, this is the council president, should not pay.
No, the director. I'm saying the one paid position.
That's not.
I'm just saying as a whole, there's only about $10,000 worth of the employee paid. And this person in particular is an unpaid person. all of the people on this board are unpaid and they meet all day. And she bought meals for everyone, after the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute said that was okay. And the claim was turned in. The county said, it was asked of me what we should do with it. I said it doesn't qualify based on the handbook, the rules of the handbook. So that was the initial thing. Now the person is given further information to the county, and they want to know if we're going to approve or deny this claim. So that's where we are today. We have to make a determination on that. Let me give you my opinion, or do you guys have thoughts on it first?
So just
Well,
real,
I can, go ahead.
go ahead. Just real quick, she bought meals for volunteers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's some staff and none volunteers on that board.
So there's paid staff
There's
also.
some paid staff on.
Nobody's paid for their position as a board member of the Substance Abuse Council.
But they are employees. There's a few.
Right, there's people that are employees
That serve on that.
that serve on the board, and they voluntarily serve on that board. So I guess they're doing it during their work day sometimes. For example, go ahead.
My take on it is we have a policy and we should follow that policy unless we want to change the policy. If we want to change that policy, I think we're opening up a can of worms to what should qualify and what shouldn't qualify and that sort of thing. Now, it's complicated by the fact that the
Indiana Criminal Justice.
Indiana Criminal Justice System seems to have given permission for this, and I think I posed that question to her as to who has authority. Is it our policy or is it this board that gives permission? Do I think that they should be able to buy lunch when they meet all day like that? Maybe I do. Maybe I think that's a reasonable expectation, but it's not policy. And so if we're going to have a policy, we need to enforce that policy. If I were in her situation and the criminal justice board, whatever it was, gave permission, maybe I would have thought too that was all that I needed. So I guess in the end, in this case here, since the money's already been spent, it's not a great deal of money, and there was that conflicting information there as to whether it was okay or not. I would be okay with going ahead and approving it, but with the understanding that maybe we put out an email or whatever to staff completely to be sure and follow policy, county policy, anytime you're purchasing something like this, and if there's a question, check on it before you spend the money. Check on the county policy before you spend the money.
I don't think I need to elaborate anymore, but I tend to agree with Elmer, the money's already spent. I don't think it's bad to reward your volunteers, but if it is against our policy, I would support the future. I would support either a policy change or we no longer do it. Sounds like she kind of did her homework. She asked, if it was approved, but again, who's ultimately,
In reality, I think the Substance Abuse Council operates under the authority of the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. The money is collected through the court system, and the budget is approved by Du Bois County. But our options really are, we approve the money, they do with it what they want, or we don't approve the money, and it sits there for when someone does approve it for them. So it's, their oversight is generally from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. And my take on this would be, it was initially, what I think it always should be, is we deny claims that are outside of the handbook, and that's what we did. She had some pushback, and once I saw that email that she was proactive and did ask if it was allowable ahead of time, I think that means something. So I believe she acted in good faith. I support her reimbursement. I think this is different than if I was the treasurer and I bought lunch for my office staff because we worked all day collecting tax. I think that's different, or if the auditor's office did it or whatever. But But yeah, we are more restrictive than what the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute is, so we would go by our rules, not their rules. I believe that's how that would operate. In this case, I support following through with that claim and this be a final time for that. I mean, unless we change the rules, of course. I mean, it is not an acceptable thing going forward. So I think I'm on the same boat as what the two of you are. So would you like us to make a formal?
Well, I just think it's really difficult for us to follow policy when you guys change it. And this is setting precedent. People can do wrong and get rewarded for doing wrong. They didn't follow the handbook. So that's just my opinion. That's why we denied it.
And I think,
And
I think your office did the right thing,
Right.
you know,
Nobody,
catching it
and nobody called our office to say, hey, can I do this?
right. Right.
Just my
And I think I'm with you that I don't like varying from where we are on that, but I think the last time we did a variation as well was, I felt comfortable that if another office could come with the exact same circumstances, I would act the same way.
But and I'm gonna use Amy as an example. She has election volunteers. When they have board meetings she can't pay for their food. When we have council meetings that last 12 hours, which we've done, we don't buy food. People buy their own lunches. When I drive to Indianapolis for a whole day and it takes 12 hours to go up to my meeting, come back, I don't buy food that day because I'm not spending the night. That's our travel policy.
But in any of those circumstances, had they asked for a state authority and the state authority said that it's okay,
Well,
I could see where a person could be, if even acting in good faith could take action contrary. I'm still comfortable with moving forward. I do see where you're coming from.
I'm just saying,
And-
it's very difficult for us to follow policy when it's a moving target.
No, and unless we change the policy, I think you continue to do what you're doing and what you did in this case was the right, what your office did in this case was the right thing to do, to question that or to deny it initially until we had a chance to look at it. I think it was the right thing to do. And that's why I said, I think a communication of some type, reminding people that always follow the policy handbook when expending money in a situation or in any situation. If it's not, doesn't follow the policy handbook, you shouldn't be doing it. And you can always call, for example, you said nobody called your office. You can always call the auditor's office and say, is this acceptable? And that way the money doesn't get spent up front and then come back and say, well, how am I gonna pay for this? And it is, in my mind, it is complicated a little bit, but, I'm not in this person's head, so I don't know what they were thinking. Well, I'll just bypass the county and I'll go here, or whether they thought that was truly the determining, or the person, or the board, or person, or organization that gave permission.
It reminds me a little bit of this Purdue deal where there's multiple people in charge of the agency as well. Like if the Purdue extension staff person did something, we wouldn't have any say in it. Okay. So we're going to approve, let's just take it as a motion. I'll move that we approve the payment of the Substance Abuse Council claim for the lunches for the volunteers.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Malcon contract. I think we have an updated contract here.
So it's not similar to what MECS does.
What's that?
This Malcom contract.
Yes, it is.
But I think we're small potatoes. I think
Yes.
it's-
Okay.
he brought that same thing up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did I. But I would have.
Anytime you got a local firm that does the same thing.
Keep it all in Dunn
I
County.
wanna give them a shake.
Maybe the conflict of interest.
Okay, so we have this,
People are doing it. Right. No, I had talked to them about it sometime back and it didn't seem that way.
alright, here's the contract. I don't think anybody else needs to sign it if we approve it, but it's there. And on top of that, they have a limited power of attorney that, they request that we sign. Mr. Schneider, is there a problem with this, limited power of attorney?
There were some date issues, but those have been resolved. Same thing on the contract, and I know at your last meeting, it was correct, I did check the minutes, you approved it pending my review, it's been reviewed. And I think you made a statement earlier, maybe I misunderstood, or just for clarification, it's $1,500 per quarter.
Oh, I said monthly?
No, I think you had said it, that when, on the retroactive stuff, that it'd be a $1,500 fee one time. But that's nothing, I don't interpret that to be the case, it could be up to $6,000 max per year,
So you're
per
saying,
calendar year.
but if they go back and they recover from 2019,
First quarter of 2019, they get $3,000, they get $1,500, we get $1,500. Then they go on to the second quarter for 2019.
I guess I didn't look at it retroactively that way, I looked at it going forward that way, but I probably have to revisit the language.
Because going forward, it only goes to the end of next year. I believe that it's per quarter.
Okay.
Because they're gonna claim it quarterly.
Correct.
But 1,500 is max now, they collect.
Per quarter.
Well, they think they'll collect 3,000, they could have up to.
So if they collect 4,000, they still only get 1,500.
Correct, and we would have to 25. And if they collect 1,000, they get 500, we get that.
There's a POA. So I suppose really there's no action needs to be taken on it, it's been approved.
There's not, I was just making that comment, clarification.
So I've signed the limited power of attorney and that document. While he's reading that, Commissioner House did earlier when we talked about that park funding, I think I was supposed to let Mike and the council folks know that just basically where we are, give them an update, right? I mean, that's the only thing I was going to contact them on.
I would agree that it sounds like it's per quarter, even retroactive, beginning with the first quarter of 2019 and
So if they were able to recover $3,000 each that was earned from those quarters, they would get paid on each. Okay, Mr. Schneider, do you have some, any business?
So I've been providing updates, as they come to me from bankruptcy counsel, from White, on the White Stallion bankruptcy, which affects our, I think what was referred to as Shamrock Mine. That is close to, I think, coming to a conclusion on the sale of assets. And there was, at this point, the assignment or assumption of our road use agreements are not a portion of that purchase. So once that is done and if that is finalized, we'll determine what our next steps are. I've discussed whether or not that's something we can go in and pursue. I was advised that those bonds that are out there would still be subject to the mandatory stay order of the bankruptcy court. However, we could petition for relief from that stay my belief or position that the county would want to do that if that's how it comes to pass. So I would take a consensus, I guess, that that's how you would want to do that. If we're unable to collect that money from the purchaser and we're stopped from doing it in the bankruptcy court, we would ask permission to try to do it anyways. It's the simplest version. Maybe it's not the simplest version. Get what we can, however we can. If that's a fair enough statement, so.
Yeah, and I scanned through some of that and had a difficult time reading some of it, but I questioned, there was a fee that they paid, I think it was for 800 West, and they paid half of it. They paid half, 80,000.
89,000.
89,000 they paid, and there's another 89,000 that is still owed.
Correct.
And since that first payment fell within a certain time period, we can even be subject to having.
Right, so I
that
inquired further.
reclaimed.
So we've kind of been looking at it of, well, we have these agreements that are out there right now. We'd like to get that money back to be able to do something with it. One of those agreements involved a 50% payment up front, which was received. However, it fell within this look back period of 90 days. Therefore, won't go into much detail, but that could come back in. And then there'd be defenses that could be raised. So that has not occurred yet. We still possess those funds. Those funds could be subject to a claim from someone.
Reclaimed by the bankruptcy.
And also subject to argument that no, they can't.
Okay.
So it's not free and clear.
Okay.
To us at this point.
So even if we have money in hand, it's not necessarily ours.
So I guess from the board's perspective on the first, if you have a problem with us trying to seek relief from that state and try to get the bond money, let me know. Otherwise, I believe that the county's best position would be to go after it if we can. So
I agree that we move forward in whatever way we need to.
that's all I had on that topic. The other topic, as ARP money comes available and finding ways to utilize it. I know we've used the services of Baker Tilly, but there are times that I've been reaching out to legal counsel as opposed to municipal advisors, and Barnes and Thornburg would entertain entering into an engagement with the county for a retainer amount of $2,500 per month, up with a minimum of $20,000 to continue to ask these questions that are coming to them from us. And I said that I would present that to the board. Whether or not we gain that, we won't know until we're done. We can use it from the ARP funds. I believe that it would be a benefit as we continue to find ways to utilize these funds and collaborate. And even as I don't know what's going to happen with our joint efforts with the city and getting a position or things like that, but that's what, and I know these conversations have been had before, and Commissioner promises, your name came up a couple of times, not just that they're willing to do that for us, and I said I would present it. I feel like it could be an asset for us to make sure we utilize these and give us an extra checks and balances put in place. And I said I would present. So the short version, I don't have that engagement letter, but that's the bare bones of it.
Yeah,
not an
I
hourly
know
rate,
Rick
it's just-
has talked to me about it as well, and I think maybe Jake German, maybe as well, from Barnes, both of them from Barnes and Thornburg. So, that's as much as I talked to him about it as well, and I didn't even know the number.
I asked.
Yeah, that they would be asking on that, and I guess my question would be, in my consideration of that is, what is your recommendation? I mean, do you think, you made the statement it could be beneficial, is it $2,500 worth of beneficial?
I don't know that we would know until we're done. And that's always the problem with, I think, a lot of stuff. Do you get what you pay for or not?
And they're not interested in hourly, I believe, is that what you stated?
Correct. They're kind of looking at it as it's a group effort for the different municipalities that they have, so like, the question we may have is the same question they've already been asked by, 4 or 5 other entities.
My take on it would be, I see that there'd be value on it, probably, likely. I would like to
Like,
say,
even, so, as Commissioner Blessinger pointed out, there's a Senate bill moving on, and even if that loosens some of the restrictions that we have, so now we can maybe do more than what we were originally allowed to do. But the follow-up question then, and this is a conversation I've had a few times, is, okay, how do we do it? Now we have this, I can go use it for this where I couldn't before. How do I procure that if I need to? And I think that's where they would benefit also.
so I think that I could support this eventually. I don't think I support doing it today. I'd like to see how things play out over the next month. If we need to bring them on, I'm sure we can do it in a month.
Yeah, I think I support it as well, just because there's so much I don't know. And I need somebody to tell us what to do or how to do it.
The thing with this flexibility rule, the first $10 million basically would be exempt, so that's 100% of our funds. And you could use that as you could. I'm trying to think of what the language is here. Loosens restrictions, allows a portion of lost revenue. So basically you can put it all back into the general funds and it can be allocated for use in any way that you want. We can use it for infrastructure needs or, anything that we could use county money for. And we have been doing that for 150 years of allocating money in the normal process. So will it, depending on the final language of that bill, do we need that? In other words, right now, I could ask Sandy probably in the auditor's office, if we wanted to give $500,000 of county general money budgeted towards, if the county council approves it, towards a project at the fairgrounds or at the 4-H, is that allowable? I think they probably know those answers. But if we say, can we take $500,000 out of our money with the restrictions they have in place? Can we do that? People probably don't know those answers. Is that a fair assumption? Because what we can and can't, in a general sense, spend money on, because we've been doing it for forever. Does that make sense, where I'm coming from on that?
Yeah, so what you're saying is this language that is being proposed right now in bill form, depending upon what comes out of that, we may have a clearer understanding of what we can do, similar to what they did with the CARES money. Eventually, they just gave it to us. Right.
That's the idea here for the first $10 million of it, as it's written.
Give you all of our money.
As the bill, Senate bill, as it's written, it exempts the first $10 million, so that would be 100% of what we got.
100%.
If we were Vandenberg County, that would only be a percentage of what you had. But I think if they say it's now county general funds, then we go through the regular process of saying, county council, here's our idea, we'd like to do it this way, can you do an additional appropriation for those dollars for this process? So I think depending on
So
how.
what you're saying is you'd like to see the outcome of this before we
Yes.
enter into this agreement.
If it stays in the form that it's in now, we probably need as much help as we can get, because there's a lot of moving parts.
Okay, good.
So you're requesting, or you're saying this is from Barnes and Thornburg,
Correct, that's what they
where
were.
we have Baker Tilly, so we have two.
One's legal, and one's accounting.
Just trying to understand.
The problem with accounting is they don't give
Legal advice.
legal advice. Well, we're not attorneys, but.
Okay, next up, Mr. Schneider, you have more?
I do not.
I'll only bring this back up again. If you had a chance to, did you look at this piece of property? Does this look familiar to you?
It does.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on it?
As far as disposing of
Yes.
it, I don't have a thought on that yet.
Okay.
You showing me that picture just reminded me of it. This came up, we discussed this piece a year ago.
I thought so.
Because I brought it to the board, received contact from a realtor for an individual who was buying ground to the east and wanted an easement across the property, and I was unaware that we owned it nor why. The authorities that be, I believe, being the engineer and surveyor and auditor, we don't know how it really came to be. It's in the middle of a tract, I believe, that's owned entirely by a charity. Not anymore.
It's now been sold from the Catholic Church to a private citizen.
All right, so that's the development, I guess, that brought it back to
Right, so now the owner said, it made me feel better if I have these things or a way that, how can we make this happen?
Right.
And so he's contacted me again since, and I
So
told
the
him.
county owns that little odd shaped piece.
Yeah. You wanna look at it?
So, and there may be a different rule because of the size, not the size of it, but the cost of it. But typically it would involve appraisals, to appraisals, and then it is sold. If there's a threshold then that is met, and that's the price that is paid. It's not the exact same as when we purchase property, but it's similar, and,
So you're thinking there might be a de minimis amount or whatever that,
correct,
if it's only,
but we still have something to determine that de minimis amount. And that could be, we encompass the cost of that into our purchase price.
and that's kind of what I told the gentleman. I said, whatever it's gonna cost us, we're gonna want all that, and then some.
Not expending money to,
It's not hurting us to keep it.
it's not helping us. But I will look at that. Thank you for reminding me.
Can we put that on the next agenda for another 5 minutes or something to make it so that I remember and I can tell the landowner that it's on the agenda at the next meeting, if he wants to, just so he knows that we're still moving forward.
A question on that, Greg. You said a year ago, I guess, lot owner in Woodland Hills
Yes,
was asking for
an easement.
an easement across that property. So is that still a
I
desire, or?
advised them no, because they had road frontage in that subdivision.
They were wishing to utilize the back portion of the property to utilize their property, go out the back, and then they're, in the subdivision itself, it stated that they must utilize the interior roads in the subdivision. So that
So that's not the consideration that would be on the table anymore.
Right.
Even if regarding what
We had advised them that we weren't inclined to do so, and that was that.
Okay.
So,
One thing I'll bring up, but I think the summary of the situation on this land, somebody bought it in 1896, whatever the year was, for $10. It sat, for all these years. Those people are probably, their descendants and everything are long gone. The assessor's office started assessing it. It got over the threshold of being able to go to a tax sale. The commissioners assumed it. I believe that's how we got our hands on it. We assumed it 25 years ago because it didn't sell the tax sale, and the commissioners decided to take the deed to it. So that's how
We own the cemetery. Is it a cemetery?
No,
It's just a little piece of land.
This is a different one. Cemetery,
I think Mr. Brosmer said that sometimes back in the day, there were reasons that an owner may get an odd shape to get to a well, or to get to a spring, or to get to something that.
And that whole area is full of springs.
So that could have been the reason. You now have the right to go from there to there to get what you need. Do we want to talk any at all about the request that the sheriff, he's going to be discussing it at the next meeting, as I mentioned earlier, but he was talking about retirement benefits as a way to maintain a good pool of officers. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, or do you know what I'm even talking about?
I don't think so.
I know a little bit about, heard that I mentioned today.
So on October 18th, he sent us an email. Can I do some going to us on there? Are you EF Promise?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It says, yeah, 2:32 on October 18th. And it basically says, I believe everyone is aware of the shortage of good qualified police officers. Huntingburg and Jasper both investigate how to attract and retain 2019. The Sheriff's Merit Board and I began investigating this earlier in the year, and they're on our agenda November 15th to discuss a way that they, I believe they've worked with Mr. Schneider a little bit on an ordinance that would, in his mind, attract officers with a new future benefit. So it's just something that we can look at, and he's given some updates on what that would cost. So I just didn't know if there was anything with this, if we wanted to talk about that at all today, or if we don't, I would ask that you or brush up on it for the next meeting. It could be a substantial expense and an ongoing liability to the county, and just something to look at. November 8th in the CTIM Theater, there's going to be a Sustaining Hoosier Communities meeting. Commissioner Brahma said he's interested in being a part of the Sustaining Hoosiers community, or communities as an organization, but he won't be available that day. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. And the reason I say that is that I've been interested in being a part of that is it kind of correlates with some of the things that I'm already doing with Du Bois Strong and EMDC, Education in Du Bois County, that committee that's working. So I thought, well, this sounds like it could be something along the same line. I don't know that I would have a high expectation of an outcome here, but there's no downside to it either that I can see. So, but yeah, I'm going to be gone next week, all week, so I won't be available to attend that meeting.
So that is a Monday, right? That'd be next Monday, a week from today.
Yes.
Mr. House, are you available to attend the Hoosier Communities meeting?
What time is it?
1:30?
Do you know how long this?
No, it's an introductory meeting, so I would say it'd be under an hour.
If it's an hour, I may be able to check my calendar.
I think I may be in payroll that day myself. So if you can attend, that would be good, and then Commissioner Rollins will take over from there.
If there's any,
What's that meeting again?
Sustaining Hoosier Communities.
It's a program that IU is implementing, I think, where they will provide the student manpower to investigate and come up with some solutions to whatever issues that may be local. That's my basic.
It reminds me of the wage study.
Wage study, yes.
Hey, here's our problem, please look at it and
Yes.
give us some results.
Good. And this is at the
Yeah, it is
campus.
CTIM it's the auditorium. They call it the CTIM Theater.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
I will plan to test.
Okay, next up, I'd like to keep the meeting moving. I want to discuss our upcoming appointments to various boards. Mr. Householder, if you'll take the top 2 pages, give the next 2 pages to Commissioner Ramos. I think, I know, actually, these were nailed out.
Yes.
But, so I'd like to, if we could, just get an early start on this. And what we normally do each year is we start at number 1 and we work our way down, and each of us take a few of the people to reach out and verify that they want to continue to serve or not. Does that sound like a fair way to continue again this year? All right, so let's start with 4-H Council, Tyler Kissel and Jake Memmer. Looks like they are up at the end of the year. Commissioner Brahmas, would you mind taking that one?
I will.
Because you've been somewhat, you've been involved with the 4-H Council. Is that okay? And if there's any objection, please let me know if somebody else wants to take it, or they think somebody else
I'll
would
call
be better.
Jake and see where they're at.
On 911 Advisory Board, I'd be happy to get with Scott Eagler about that. On the Airport Authority, I think I was the one that kind of talked to Ben Schwank, whatever, he took over Bob Johnson's term, so I can probably find his information and call him back unless one of you know him. I'm fine to try and find him.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll do that one. David Ring, I've been calling him every year, so I'm happy to continue calling him with the Alcohol Beverage Commission. Is that okay with you? Okay. Ambulance, I'm in regular communication with Mr. Young, so I don't mind calling him either.
I like where this is going.
All right, well, it's not gonna stay that way.
So far, so good.
Next up, Du Bois Strong. Commissioner Browns, would you like to continue?
Sure, I'll do that. for
Do
those.
another term, unless Commissioner Hostetter has an opposition to that.
Not any opposition.
Okay. So there we go, we've got one down already. Community corrections, all in good shape for this year. The contractual public library term, let's see, is there any of those that are up? Does not appear so. No action to take there. Custodian. We good with Mr. Hope continuing?
Yes.
Is he good with it?
Well, we're gonna reappoint him, and we're not gonna tell him he has an option. Same way with Mr. Schneider. Mr. Schneider, would you like to be reappointed for another term?
I would be delighted to, thank you.
Okay. The Du Bois County Child Protection Team, there is an error on this form. It says me, but the auditor's office has already informed them, and I reached out to them as well this weekend. So it's been corrected. Autumn Goble is our representative there. That's the only one that I'm going to assume she will keep doing because she just took over not too long ago. So that one's fine. EMA,
I'll continue.
looks like where everybody's still on
I don't think
mine.
any of those are,
Oh, they're not up anyways.
only do the highlighted ones.
Yep. Verdant Planning Commission, Mark Dilger.
I'll take that.
Okay. Next up, Health Board, Ryan Flamian, MD, and David J. Fisher.
I'd be happy to call Dave Fisher. I do not know Ryan Fleming, but somebody gets me well, I'm sure I can find his contact.
Call his office if you're
Yeah,
on.
I just thought about that. I saw the MD and I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty simple.
MD means I've got a website.
Yeah.
All right, so that's good. We got those taken care of. Dr. Walford, Health Board, Local Health Officer. How do we feel, or how does he feel about that? Anybody know Dr. Walford?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I recall, I think that would come from the Board of Health
Appointed by Board of Health.
for this board's then approval. Accept it.
So we don't need to reach out to him. They do. And then they
Right,
come to us.
it should be on their radar.
What I'll do is send email to a board member and,
For sure.
or Sean, and just say, hey, make sure you're paying attention to this. Yeah, I'll probably send it to Dr. Richardson. I believe she's still the president of that board. Highway clerk, is she still, do you think Ann still wants to continue?
Yes.
She hasn't had enough punishments?
Not yet.
Okay. Mr. Wendell, are you still interested in continuing?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Berg?
Yes.
Huntingburg Economic Development Commission, nothing to do there. Toka Lake Regional Water, nothing on there. Property Tax Board of Appeals. Looks like, or did I skip a page? I went the wrong direction?
You went somewhere.
So I guess my front and back got mixed up, so.
Somebody's public library.
Let's go to the public library. Lauren Tanner.
I can reach out to her.
Indiana 15, Commissioner Hostetter.
Yes.
You're still good to continue? I did already do the next one, the Jasper Public Library Board. I called Pamela Cack yesterday morning, yesterday sometime, and I had a conversation with her. She's good to continue. If we are we okay with continuing her appointment? Okay. Northeast Du Bois Fire Protection District, Steve Dodd and Larry Jean Hall.
I can do that. I know Larry, so I'll do both of them. Unless somebody wants one of them.
I do not. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Park and Rec Board, Tony Hasenauer and Joseph Keisch. Looks like that's Joseph Keisch is by the judge. So we would only be responsible for Mr. Hasenauer. Anybody know them?
As you know. I don't have my name on a lot of stuff, so if you guys want me to do it, but one of you guys knows gonna go for it.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll put you down for that one, and I think you could probably check, one of our emails that has come from their board. I'm sure we've had an email from them, and I think Mr. Hausmauer works for, Ferdinand, the school district over there, the south.
Southeast.
Now we're on the back page. Property Tax Board of Appeals. Mr. Pearson, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Abel. I can talk to Mr. Smith. If any of you guys want to talk to him.
Able is counsel.
What did I say?
Able to counsel.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, so just Dwayne Pearson. Did you say you have him, Elmer? Or did you not? Okay.
I can see it, I can dump it.
Okay, I'll get Mr. Smith. And on each of these, if there's somebody that you want to put forth in front of them, remember, we can always do that too. We are under no obligation to re-appoint someone. Okay. Solid Waste,
I'll get to
you said you'll call Ken?
yes.
Tourism Committee, Mr. Treader and Jim McFall. So Treader, that's another one I'm gonna take that he is a yes for sure, because he's just since July been on the board, so he's hasn't had a full term, so I'm gonna assume that he's still good with that. What about Mr. McFall? I can email him. TriCap, I'll intend to do another year on TriCap. Amber Harris is listed as Veteran Service Officer, so that needs to be corrected unless. Okay. Weed Control Board. Mr. Berg, what do you think about these folks here? We've got James Meyer, Ken Eck, Mark Hoaxang, and Pat Eckerly. You think they're all good to go again?
Yes.
Well, any of those are appointments?
I think they have to be from a certain area, right? They have to fit a criteria, but then I think we approve them, is that correct?
Yes.
I think that shoots the list. Did I miss any?
Oh, I can see.
Okay, so we can continue to work on that next, maybe over the next month. Sandy, I know you're good at this, but we need to have a weed board in January. No, weed board, ditch board, what's that called?
Drainage board.
Drainage board.
Drainage.
Drainage board.
Yeah.
Can we do that in January?
I think so, I think
January, yes.
Yeah, you do it immediately every year.
I think it hadn't been done, but I think, we had 2 meetings the previous year. We had one in January, then one in the middle of the year again, because there were some things that he was looking at, but I think, we're required to have a yearly meeting.
Do you want to have it at the first meeting or the second meeting? The way the calendar falls, Ms. Chair, will both be on Tuesdays.
I'm sorry, I thought I had it there, but I just wanted to see what I had. Drainage board meeting, I
So
don't
we'll have
think.
drainage board and we'll have, what is the treasurer?
Board of Finance.
Board of Finance meeting.
Let's do the drainage board, the second meeting.
The
And
second meeting will also be
Tuesday.
the second, will be a solid waste meeting in the morning. So this meeting won't start till 8:30.
January's gonna be a
We always meet in December and January, back to back, December, January, back to back.
But you guys gonna do yours on a
No,
Tuesday?
not back to back in the summer. Yeah, June, July. I think.
The drainage board meeting, I believe, so this is January 6th, 2020, so I know that was a year ago. We set it for January the 4th of 2021 for the next meeting. So I'm not sure if our meeting minutes from the January meeting already dictated our next meeting.
you'll just let us know. I just want to put it back on your radar so that it'll be on one of the two agendas. So Mr. Sheriff, be fine if we make that determination already.
We did, January 4th, 2022 at 9 a.m.
There we go. And I believe for that, don't we put the original meeting into recess, do that formally and go back out? Okay.
And so the Board of Finance would be the second one.
Would be the second one, what do you?
Second meeting in January. I'm not called. This is Sandy.
Hey, Brent.
Okay.
I should stand up too. That road.
Yes. Remember, this is all let's make it back, this is all recorded right away. Like property owners needed the right away all the way out to 164. I thought I had a recorded document of that, but I will check that.
Thank you. Did they just recess? Did they end?
Taking a bathroom break. Since you had a call there, Nick wanted to go and then the others followed.
The other one is that if it hasn't been since. It's part of our program. And then different set of rules.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
You go within 1,000, let's see what happens.
See what it says.
Right, just so that we do this.
Right.
That we make sure we include accepting or subject to all.
So don't worry about this. Yeah. Benefit or recorder right away. Right. Okay, I'll check that. Thanks, I needed some work with it.
There's like more over there.
Have a database and just.
I should.
Sandy, would you be able to send me those? You sent the draft minutes, do you send back out the final minutes from last meeting, October 18th?
I can.
You just said.
Well, I'd have to get Lynn to do it because she has the finals.
That's fine, I'll just send it her.
Huh?
I'll email it.
She'll send it to you. We put them on the website too.
Got there, there yet?
Also, everything on the website.
Okay, I'll just give them that.
They're just not signed. No, I don't know, did she put the sign? I don't think they have signatures.
See if we can wrap the business up here. Next up, I think there were some emails that went to us from Mr. Love about the Veteran Service Office, and he is beginning the conversation, potentially turning the position from a part-time position to a full-time position. He was asking the auditor's office and us, I suppose, of how that process would work, and he was informed that, budget time has just been over, any changes would have to be taking place next year. Is he on a future agenda at this point? He's not on a future agenda yet, but it's just something that I guess that conversation is going on. Looks like he is really running strong with the office. He's doing a lot of volume for the veterans benefit applications. And on Saturday, he had a veterans rally with a couple hours of content for local veterans to come participate in. I haven't heard how it went. But, he's running with it, so I didn't know if anybody had any comments on that today. I haven't had, he sent an email, I think, Saturday evening, and I haven't had a chance to.
I just saw it last night, my personal email, and I just saw the email late last night, so that's first I knew about it. Yeah, I need to know a whole lot more about this before I automatically say, yeah, let's go with that, because, you know, we decide at what level of support. I don't know that, we can't just build it out. If somebody sees a need and creates a position to serve the community, we want to serve the community, but at what level, or what's the right level to serve the community?
I think that's the question. And do you know, is the position, is there one of these in Pike County and Martin County? Are they everywhere? Does every county have a VSO, or I don't know how that.
I'm not sure.
I think it's just an option. From the limited one I know, it's an optional thing that DuBois County chooses to do and chooses to fund. But I'm not positive of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it in the,
Directory?
no, in the
Fact book?
fact book?
Maybe. So, okay, well, anyway, that's another one of those issues that I guess we should look at and give consideration.
You know, I applaud him for doing all he can do for the veterans. What is the level of service that we expect to provide?
And I think one of his comments that I read was that this was a full-time position previously. Do you recall that?
Never since I've been here.
Okay. I thought he had written that on one of the emails. I didn't know
I didn't see that, but.
What was the gentleman's name that lived on Cedar Road? Joe
Joe
Wagner. So he was in there,
Bruce Eckert was before him.
but they weren't full-time.
Well, I'm sure that he's catching up a lot. We haven't had somebody in there full-time for a couple of years. Not full-time, just there. I'm sure there's a lot of catching up to do.
Mr. Schneider, can you see if statutorily, if that language exists anywhere, that veteran service officers, what, if there's a statutory requirement for that, what that is? Because we, just like the Purdue extension, we've learned more about what's required of that recently. So it's just something to keep in mind. You what? You want to look at it? So they do have administrative stuff there, but under the administrative list, I can see better. Okay. Any other talk on that?
No.
Mr. Chairman may find something for us. Okay. That is good. So that we discussed.
I know he thought he had to do this before the end of the year, and I said, no, you can't do it that way.
Any action on the sewer in the last 2 weeks?
We did have a meeting, we discussed, how we would possibly make up the board, which is, not 100% concrete, but we did come up with some initial framework for it. And then you should be getting an email of the final draft copy of the study, to go through it, check for any errors or anything that might kind of out of place, and then that'll in turn be final draft.
Great. Look forward to it. Is anything substantial changed with it? I mean, the numbers are gonna be the same, and was it mostly just, typos, that kind of stuff?
I think so, for the most part.
They reorganized a little bit just to help make it smoother transitioning through the document. Nothing changed on what was done, just kind of make everything a little smoother fall around.
By requirement for a certain grants that they're applying for, it had to be restructured a little bit, so she structured it in that form. present the final draft at the first December meeting, December 6th.
They'll be here, what's this?
Right. But you should have a copy in your inbox today where you can look over it.
Okay.
Make sure there's no changes that need to be made.
My last thing is I sent emails last week and again this weekend on contracts for preliminary contracts with internet service providers and Du Bois REC to continue the process with the potential contribution from the county for the whole make ready situation. So I think Mr. Schneer's been in talk with some of them as well, and I'm trying to keep this moving. Because we're paying to accelerate it. The longer we take, that acceleration means a little less, I think. So just want to get it moving if we're gonna do it. I think the last time we talked about it here was, we can kind of agree to it in principle, but until we actually have an agreement in writing, it's hard to say you agree with it or you don't. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Schneer?
I do not. I did have, I spoke briefly with REC's attorney. You summarized it correctly. No, I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. I guess I do have one other thing, the health grant that we applied for. Those selections were expected to occur on November 5th. And then last week they reached out and said, hey, we'd like to interview your people on November 11th. About how this will impact your community. They changed the rules a little bit, I guess, but I don't know anything about it. But so we're going to try to. I'm going to meet with the mayor and a couple of the council people that are on it this week, I guess, to have a discussion on it, and then we will have a meeting on November 11th by Zoom. So we'll see how that
You can always read into that, what does that mean?
That's right.
They're open. It's Veterans Day. I was just intrigued by the date of your meeting.
I could be wrong with the date.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
I thought that's what they said, but I could be wrong. At some point later in November, November 5th, they're wanting to have a meeting, so we haven't said it.
We're still in the running. Maybe everybody is still in the running.
That's possible. So yeah, we're gonna have and then this Wednesday, I'm gonna have a meeting with at least the mayor and some other people on that to discuss. All right, that's all I have. Commissioner Hofstadter?
No, well, I know the sewer district does the only additional I have.
No, I don't have anything. I'm going to be out of town all next week, but I will be in contact with email and phone and so forth.
Oliver? Public?
You left?
All right, I guess we'll close it up then.
All right.
Thank you.